My entitled coworker literally changed my work and made me look bad in front of my bosses, as my bosses confirmed that this was going to go on my permanent record. But instead of taking this sitting down, I decided to get some revenge by literally outing my coworker who tried to screw me over, as I shared screenshots and very hard evidence proving that he tried to sabotage my job, resulting in my coworker inevitably getting fired. And now I'm kind of wondering if I made the right call, because this situation has been very frustrating. Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old male and I work as a mid-level ops manager at a logistics company. It's nothing fancy, it's mostly spreadsheets, vendors, and trying to keep the warehouse from turning into absolute chaos. We had an internal opening for a team lead role, and my coworker, who I will call Dylan, has been loudly campaigning for it for months. He's the kind of guy who talks about ownership and visibility a lot, and he's always in the comments on Teams acting like he's the only adult in the room. 2 weeks ago, we had a pretty ugly shipping mess. A vendor missed a pickup, and then we got hit with a last-minute order that needed to go out the same day. So I stayed late, I called around, I moved some staff, and I fixed it. And while it was annoying, I ended up solving it. The next morning, my director calls me in and says my weekly report shows that I approved an overtime shift that I wasn't authorized to approve, and also that I marked the vendor as confirmed when they weren't. Basically, it looked like I caused the whole thing. Now, I was confused because I didn't do that, but when I pulled up the report, the numbers were changed, like literally edited completely. We use a shared template, but we each have our own tab. And somehow my tab had notes added that I never wrote, and a couple fields were altered. Well, I checked the version history, and I saw edits from Dylan's account at like 11:47 p.m., literally on the night that I stayed late. Mind you, Dylan wasn't on shift. He also messaged me earlier that night by saying, hey, if you need help with a report, just send me a message. But I didn't respond because I was busy. Now, I confronted Dylan privately, and he acted surprised, saying that he must have clicked the wrong tab while trying to help me out, and that he didn't realize it would lock in. But the edits made were very specific, and they just so happened to make me look incompetent and him look like the savior because his tab had a note like flagged risk to leadership in it. Also, he never told me that he touched my stuff. He only apologized after I showed him the history. And even then, it was this half apology like, oh, sorry you feel blindsided. I felt sick about it, and my director told me it was going on my record unless I could explain it. So I exported the version history, I saved screenshots of Dylan's edits, and I sent a short email to HR and my director saying that I believe my work was altered without permission, and I wanted it documented. I never asked for him to be fired, I just wanted my name cleared. Human Resources interviewed the both of us, and apparently other people had similar issues with him fixing their work, and as a result, he got terminated last Friday. Ever since then, half the team is acting like I snitched and ruined his life, and one guy told me that I should have handled it like a man and not run to Human Resources. Dylan even texted me from a new number, saying that I'm a bitter loser who couldn't compete fairly. And now I'm sitting here thinking, like, did I overreact here? Should I have seriously just taken the hit and moved on? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, no, you didn't do anything wrong, dude. This guy was trying to make you look bad and literally sabotage your job. Like, this was gonna go on your record for this company. That is absolutely unacceptable, and you're under no obligation to accept that in the slightest. Like, this guy was trying to damage your reputation and your job. He literally was trying to get you in trouble so he can move up the ladder while you get taken down. Like, that is not okay. So anyone trying to be like, oh, you should have just taken it like a man, like, I'm sorry, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Because if I was in that situation, I would snitch until I turned blue in the face. I would be like, oh yeah, Dylan did this specifically, here's all the screenshots. Because I'm not gonna let my job be in jeopardy. Like, are you crazy? That is unacceptable. I don't think so. So good for the original poster. You absolutely did the right thing. Dylan deserved to be fired, and that's not your fault. That's literally his, as he's the one that's been going around screwing with people's work just to make them look bad and make him look like some kind of savior. That is super toxic. That's not okay. And I don't blame you for reporting this guy or for him getting fired. Because at the end of the day, this was probably gonna happen whether you stepped in or not. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk at the gym literally tried to kick me off of equipment that I just got on, all because he said he was planning to use it next. But despite the fact that my gym is first come first serve for all the equipment, this guy refused to take no for an answer and was incredibly annoying. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened yesterday and I'm still annoyed. I go to the gym after work at around 6 o'clock p.m., which is peak time, so it's always crowded. I got there and I managed to grab one of the squat racks, which is normally impossible at that hour. So I'm warming up, I'm about to start my actual sets, when this dude comes up and asks how many sets I have left. I said to him, well, I just started and probably have about like 20 minutes. When I said this, he got this attitude and says to me, well, I've been waiting for a rack for like 15 minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so have other people. I got here when I got here, like what do you want? He then said to me, I was watching this rack and I was gonna take it after the last guy, so technically I have dibs. I told him that's not how the gym works at all. It's first come first serve on the equipment and he knows that. He then said that I was being selfish and I should just let him go first since he was waiting longer. Well, I just ignored him and I started my workout, but he stood like 5 feet away from me just staring at me the entire time, letting out these big sighs and checking his watch dramatically and shaking his head. After my third set, he came back and said to me, are you done yet? Some of us have actual training programs we need to stick to. But I said to him, I'll be done when I'm done. And after that, he then called me like a bunch of names under his breath. And you know what? I ended up taking extra time between sets just out of spite, because if you're going to be a jerk about it, then I'm absolutely going to be taking my full rest periods, whether you like it or not. Man, it is crazy to me that people actually act like that in a gym because, dude, are you not self-aware of how weird you're being? Like, first off, this guy's talking to someone in the gym, which is something I would never do, but he's also hovering over this equipment and trying to act like a complete jerk. Like, just because you were waiting around doesn't mean you're somehow, like, obligated to get this equipment. Like, are you kidding me right now? So I love the fact that the original poster stretched this out as long as possible. It feels like some fantastic instant karma, and honestly, it is so deserved. My entitled ex-girlfriend got really pissed off at me when I wouldn't pay for all of her expenses after we took a trip together, as I had to remind her that we are no longer a couple, which means I'm under no obligation to pay for everything. Here's what happened. To start things out, my ex-girlfriend and I split up a while ago and genuinely wanted to be friends. It wasn't a messy breakup or anything like that. It was just distance that honestly ruined it. Now, we had the amazing idea of taking a trip together. In my right mind, I'd have been against this, but I had also just started some new medications which stopped me thinking straight, and I was just focused on how much I enjoyed it when we traveled together. She would book the hotels as we went, and we'd agreed to split the cost. I also wound up paying for pretty much everything there, namely the food, admissions, transport, etc., as it was just easier doing it that way when on the move. And some such admissions were the equivalent of around $67 US and only accepted cash. After the trip, which wasn't great by the way, the first thing she did was text me just to remind me that I owed her for the hotels, which was before I had even gotten on my flight back. And I said no problem. I'm gonna work out what I owe with the admissions off, etc. Her response was to say, you're not gonna pay me because I don't love you anymore? Wow, that's pretty funny. Now typically I don't mind buying things for people at all, and I wasn't even going to mention the food and the drinks and all this other stuff, as I generally do better than she does. But that comment was just so unnecessarily rude. I went through my expenses for the trip and got the exact amount of everything that I'd spent on her. I copied the receipts, etc. And then I went back and I said, that's exactly right. We are not in a relationship at all. Turns out I spent the cost of the hotels and then a little bit more, so I think we're about even. And what I said was true, and I didn't send her a penny more, because she really expected me to pay for everything, since that's what I've always done when we were together. Well, ever since then, she hasn't really spoken to me, and honestly, I think I'm completely fine with that. Okay, I don't blame the original poster for a second for taking this route, because holy crap, what in the world is going on? First off, the fact that you went on some kind of trip with your ex-girlfriend is a huge step that I would never be able to take. Like, I don't know about you, but that's just not something I would ever even try to trifle with. So the fact that you did that is honestly kind of blowing my mind. But the fact that she was actually thinking you would pay for everything, just like when you did when you guys were in a relationship, like that is weird. That is so strange in my opinion. And it's also super entitled. Like, why would she act like that? You guys are not a couple anymore. So good for you for putting her in her place and saying, okay, this is absolutely not gonna happen. I'm gonna pay for what I owe, and literally that's it. Because it sounds like she was trying to take advantage of you, and that is really unfair. Am I the jerk for canceling on going to a family trip after I realized that I was expected to literally pay for everything? Because now my family's making it awkward and saying that I made this trip about money, despite the fact that they were going to take all of mine to pay for everything. And at this point, I'm honestly pissed and I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So my family planned a weekend trip and asked if I wanted to join. Now, I agreed because it sounded nice, and I assumed that everyone was contributing. But as planning continued, it became pretty clear they expected me to handle the hotel booking, the rental rental car and most meals because I earn more than they do. Oh, and by the way, nobody asked me directly to do this. They just kept saying things like, oh, you could put it on your card and we can figure it out later. But in the past, the word later never came around. Eventually, I finally asked them, what would the cost split actually be? The conversation then got awkward and someone joked that I should treat everyone since I'm doing really well financially. And that's the moment that made me realize I was being invited more as a sponsor than a participant. So I straight up told them that I'm no longer going. And now they say that I ruined the trip and that I made money an issue when it should not have even mattered within family. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do because this really pissed me off. Holy crap, I would be so mad if I was the original poster. You mean to tell me they only invited you to be a part of this trip because they thought, oh wait, he can pay for everything. He makes so much more money than the rest of us. He'll be okay with it. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm absolutely not going to sponsor your stupid trip. The fact that they're trying to be like, oh yeah, just put it on your card. We'll figure it out later. That is absolutely code for I'm never going to pay you back. You'll never see any money out of me. And no, it wasn't in writing, so you can't prove we agreed to anything. Like, that is some crazy talk, dude. There's no way I would ever put up with that. So no, the original poster is not the jerk. I don't blame you for backing out, because if they really wanted to go on that trip, they would figure it out themselves, which in my opinion, that plan should not include any money out of your bank account. My coworkers and my manager are incredibly greedy and very lazy, as they're making my life at this restaurant incredibly difficult based off of their bad behavior. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I work at a breakfast buffet place, and my days were cut down to 2 after going to college. I had to leave an hour early on 2 days for class and got management approval, and my 2 coworkers didn't mind and said they knew how important college is and even made sure I was leaving on time. I let them take the cash tips and didn't touch that. However, the manager put equal credit card tips, and they were so pissed and complained. I told management they can take the higher percentage, but instead of doing that, he just cut my days. Meanwhile, one of my coworkers would take coffee orders, be given cash, and wouldn't even ring up the order and just pocket the cash. I've noticed multiple times, and of course I told management, but they didn't care. They seemed lazy to even investigate it in the first place. And then last week, something similar happened. The first day, there was a $10 bill on the tip jar and it disappeared. And my coworker said he put it there so guests can put tips, and I honestly believed him. But the second day, there was like $30 in the tip jar, and I kept watching because I never saw him put anything in it. But towards the end of the shift, the money disappeared. I then told him I saw there was money there, and he said he never noticed anything, that he put $5 himself there, but that was it. Then after a half an hour or so, he said he found $30 on the floor and split it. And I'm seriously so done with these people because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, this sounds like one of those places where all of them have worked there for like 20 years, and they now gang up on any new employee just to chase them off. And that includes the management. Like, good lord, that is so stupid and annoying. Think about it for a second. These people are not only stealing tips, but they're also sabotaging your attempts at having like steady work and like days you can come in and do a shift. So if I was in your shoes, I would start looking for another job. Screw these people. They clearly don't have your best interests in mind, and I think you can absolutely do better than this. My parents, even to this day, still rant and whine about my college rejections, despite the fact that I'm literally pushing 30 years old. Because every time I get with them, they're always talking about this, and I'm honestly about to lose my mind over it. Here's what's going on. So I'm currently back in my hometown for Christmas for a few days, and one of the first things my parents talked about while we were getting ready to go to our relative's house was how my cousin Jenny got into Stanford. They were acting like she's a celebrity, while also just low-key throwing shade at me and acting like I wasted their money back in high school because I didn't get into any Ivy League school, and so now they have nothing to brag about with their relatives. But here's the thing, I'm literally 28 years old. My mom even remembers down to the detail how many colleges I got rejected from, my SAT scores for each section, my extracurricular activities, and even which of my friends got into which colleges. At one point, my dad even said, "Is it too late for you to consider computer science? You will make way more money than you make now." And then my mom said, "You know, one of my other relatives got into Harvard early action, but you know what? You didn't get into Harvard because you didn't apply yourself in high school. I told you you should have done more extracurriculars." Now, I didn't actually answer because I don't care. This was like 5,000 years ago. I have a career, and I graduated from a college that just isn't prestigious enough for them because it's not an Ivy League or Stanford level school. And while I'm not rich, I'm doing just fine. Most of the people I knew from high school who got into Ivy League schools aren't exactly all billionaires either. My parents are older immigrants, and even though I moved out like 10 years ago, they still act like this every time I come back because they're both retired and have nothing to occupy their minds and time. I'm pretty sure that even when I'm away, my mom thinks about my college rejection and AP scores. When we were in the car, she said to me, "Do you remember how in high school you got rejected from Yale and even Columbia, but even Kevin from church got into Yale because his mom hired a tutor for his essays? You know, you did Key Club and so did some of your friends, but they both got into Stanford and you didn't, and their SAT scores weren't even higher than yours." Never mind the fact that I'm literally almost 30 years ago and this just doesn't apply to me any longer. It's super annoying and I'm kind of sick of it. Oh man, this is one of those situations where I would be very frustrated. It's like, dude, just because I didn't go to an Ivy League school doesn't mean I can't have a really good career. And from the sounds of it, the original poster's doing just fine, man. They're not poor, they're not living on the street. They have some money in the bank and it's like, okay, I'm doing fine. I make an average amount of money and like things are going great. I got nothing to complain about. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would also be pretty annoyed because this sounds incredibly obnoxious. An entitled jerk reaches out to me asking for a job, even though she treated me like garbage and ghosted me when I was desperate for work and messaging her. And so this gave me the greatest opportunity at petty revenge I've ever experienced in my life, as I returned that same energy right back at her that she had given me in the first place. Here's how I did it. A couple of years ago, when my husband got a job in another country, I decided to give up my well-paying job to be with him and for us to have a better quality of life. Now, this country is in Europe, and learning the local language was an important requirement for any job outside of tech jobs, unless it was an international company. And for reference, my husband has a tech job and didn't have a language requirement. Since my job field was not in tech, I knew about this and started learning the language before we even moved there. And after we moved, I started sending LinkedIn requests to fellow immigrants from my home country, hoping to get some kind of job search advice. I was going through a depressing period with a horrible job market and 0 interviews in 4 months. And if I'm being completely honest, I did not know what I was doing wrong. I also continued to learn the local language full time, and I had a lot more time to do that since I was out of a job. During this time, I connected with a lady on LinkedIn, let's call her Susan for the sake of the story, who worked in the same field as me. I thanked Susan for accepting my connection request, I explained my situation, and I asked her if she had any tips or advice on finding a job, as she was someone who went through the same journey herself. Susan replies by saying, "Learn the local language. I don't know if I can help you in any other way." I then thanked her and asked if she would be open to meeting for coffee or a phone call, but she said the next 2 months are really busy and she might be able to meet after that. Now, I tried messaging her after that, asking her specific questions about training, certification, and resume points, but in the end, she would just read the message and then ghost me. I was desperate for a job and I was feeling quite crappy about myself. I messaged a couple more times and even wished her a happy new year over the 4 months that followed, but still, I got nothing in return. Luckily, I finally managed to learn the local language really well, and as a result, I impressed interviewers, and I landed a job about a year later. And you know what? I love my current job. It's a very nice company with good work culture. Well, earlier this year, Susan lost her job due to budget cuts, and I found this out from her open to work LinkedIn post that she made. Coincidentally enough, my manager was hiring for a role that would be perfect for Susan, and I had just reposted that on my LinkedIn. Well, what do you know? Susan messages me asking for a referral and tells me how much she cares about my company's vision and mission, and that she would love to apply for the role and is happy to share her resume. And all of this, by the way, after leaving my messages completely unresponded. Now, I didn't want to be like her and leave her on read, so I replied with a generic, "Oh, hi Susan, thank you for your interest. Please apply back on our career website. We are reviewing all applications on an ongoing basis, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. All the best." Well, the last I checked, she still hasn't gotten a job. And sure, it's a tough market, but at the end of the day, this is not my problem. Okay, I'm a firm believer that this is the only way to handle people who leave you on read. People who ghost you when you're just trying to reach out and make some kind of connection, who then just say nothing to you and be like, "Yeah, you're just gonna have to learn the local language. Can't really help you out from there," in my opinion, don't deserve any help in return. Like, holy crap, I hate people like this. Because one day the shoe is always on the other foot. And I'm not saying like devote all your resources to things, but like, dude, a simple message back could have completely sufficed in this scenario. It wasn't necessary to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm just not gonna respond and you're just gonna have to deal with it." So good for the original poster. And the best part about it is that they were professional the entire time. They didn't rip them a new one, they weren't rude about it, but instead they shut them down by just being completely professional and, if anything, incredibly neutral, which might just be the best way to give a middle finger right back to this lady, especially after she ghosted you when you were desperately in need of some kind of help. My therapist told me to always be 100% honest and unfiltered in our sessions. So I decided to follow his advice and I did exactly what he said, resulting in one of the most awkward therapy sessions I've ever had in my entire life. And I'm honestly not sure what to do about this. Here's what happened. So I've been seeing this psychologist for a while now. It's nothing extreme, no like awful story, just regular therapy stuff that I'm trying to maintain. Talking about feelings, habits, patterns, coping, all of that. One thing he kept repeating almost every single session was that therapy only works if I'm fully honest and I don't filter myself at all. Like, he really pushed it. His exact words were something like, say whatever comes to your mind, even if it feels awkward or rude. This is a safe space. And he said it so often that it basically became a rule. So at some point I decided, okay, let's actually do that for real. No softening, no polite wording, no thinking how it sounds. When he asked about how I felt about therapy lately, I answered honestly. I said that sometimes it feels very repetitive, that some questions sound scripted, and that I occasionally feel like I'm talking to a process instead of like a real person. I also mentioned that some of his reactions feel a bit forced or rehearsed. I wasn't yelling, I wasn't trying to be mean, I was just saying it exactly how it popped into my head. Well, the vibe in the room changed really fast. He got visibly tense and started shifting in his chair, and suddenly honesty wasn't the goal anymore. He told me that not every thought needs to be shared, that it's important to stay respectful, and that what I said could be a form of resistance or projection, which honestly confused me because like 5 minutes earlier, he was pushing the whole no filter thing really hard. We ended up spending the rest of the session talking about why I felt the need to say those things instead of actually addressing what I said. I walked out feeling weirdly guilty and uncomfortable, even though I literally did exactly what he asked me to do. And now I'm sitting here wondering if this counts as malicious compliance at all, or if I'm really just bad at therapy, because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, this is really funny because I've kind of been in your shoes before. Like, I've been to therapy many times, and I've also been a little bit too honest with my therapist. And I will say, if they're bad at their job, this will affect them. But if they're good at their job, they'll be able to redirect and be like, okay, let's stay on course and not make things weird. Because from the sounds of it, it kind of seems like you insulted the therapist and like got under their skin. And so then they suddenly want to be like, okay, well, let's dissect everything you just said about me. And it's like, dude, come on now. I'm literally just trying to be honest and like give my honest feelings about stuff. And instead, we're now sorting through your feelings. Like, what's going on right now? So yeah, that therapist sucked and you didn't do anything wrong, because the fact that you're in therapy in the first place is a massive win, and that is not something that should be overlooked. An entitled Karen demands that I teach her kid how to swim after she lets him wander into the deep end, claiming that I'm a bad person by not wanting to do it, and that I should be helping out her kid because it would be the right thing to do. And I'm honestly still blown away by this Karen's attitude, because this level of negligence is honestly absolutely baffling. Here's what happened. Okay, so I often go to the pool once or twice a week just to stay in shape and try to relax. I went there Saturday evening, and the pool I go to has 2 different pools. A fun one with slides and bubbles and things like that, mainly for children or people who just want to relax. And then we have a real one, where people swim in lanes. Now, in the real one, there are 2 sides. One for experienced swimmers that is about 3 to 4 meters deep, and one for people who are learning that is pretty shallow. It is a well-known rule that people who can't really swim well can't go in the deep part, and you can't stop or play in there as it's meant for serious swimming. Well, I was swimming in the deep part, and while I was doing a backstroke, I felt my hand hit something. Well, I turned around and I saw a young kid that was maybe 7 years old. I told him that he shouldn't be there because people were going pretty fast and he could get hurt by other swimmers. But while I was talking to him, I noticed that he wasn't swimming very well. He was doing weird movements and barely keeping his head above the water. So I got out of the pool with him and I looked for his mom. Now at this pool, people that accompany children but don't swim can get inside without paying and just sit around the pool, which is what this mom was doing. We then find her looking at her phone, and I tell her that it was pretty dangerous for her child to be in the deep end of the pool when he didn't know how to swim well, and he could get hit by other swimmers. She then looks up, clearly annoyed, and then tells me it's okay, he's just a kid. So I told her that I wasn't upset at him, but I was just concerned for his safety. She then told me that if I really was concerned for his safety, I would have taught him how to swim instead of making him get out, and that it would be safer for him if I taught him. I told her that wasn't my role, but she started saying that that's not very nice for him, and that I should help out a child when I saw that he was in distress. I told her that I wouldn't because, for starters, I'm not qualified to teach children. Not to mention this is a huge liability, and I don't want to be responsible for a boy's life. And I paid to do this, and I'm just here to relax. She then started telling me that I was selfish for not sharing my skills, that I swam well enough to teach children, and that she wasn't asking for a lot of my time, that I should be happy to help others and all this other garbage. But I just said no again, and she looked at me and said, I just can't believe this, while also shaking her head. Well, trust me, Karen, I can't believe this either, because the level of entitlement that I saw from her truly blew my mind. Yeah, this is actually unbelievably unsafe. It's not even funny. You mean to tell me that she left her kid in the pool to go swim in the deep end, and she's not sitting there watching or at least like helping him swim or something like that? Like, she would rather have a stranger take care of her kid instead of having an active role in making sure that he doesn't drown? Like, what is wrong with this lady? She should never be at a pool ever again. That is so unsafe, and it's so unfair for the person literally just trying to swim around. And it's honestly crazy that she really tried to guilt trip you into like teaching her son how to swim, when in reality, that is something you need to teach a kid before he even steps foot in the water. Like, that should be closely monitored, not just like, okay, go have fun. Like, that is crazy to me. So yeah, this Karen was super irresponsible, and the fact that she did not care if her kid was like swimming or drowning and was expecting you to teach him how to swim, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for sleeping in on a family vacation to Disney World and effectively pissing off my entire family? Because right now, things are not the same, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 25-year-old female, and recently I went on a family vacation that resulted in basically all my cousins cutting ties with me and vice versa. My fiance and I were invited by a few of my cousins to go to Disney World with them. So we took some unpaid time off of work, we booked our flights and bought park tickets. On the first day, the plan was to go to Epcot, but I decided to sleep in, and my fiance kindly stayed back at the resort to wait for me. Once we made it there, I texted a chat with a couple of my cousins, notifying them and requesting that we meet up. Well, we never did, though we did all make plans to meet for dinner at about 8:00 p.m. However, at 6:55 p.m., my cousin, who we will call Brad, reached out to me to inform me that they were actually changing dinner to 7:00 p.m. And at that point, we were in line for a ride. I communicated this and I didn't get a reply, and then anxiously added that they could go without us if they wanted. Well, that's exactly what they did. And I'd been disappointed that we hadn't met up the entire day, and was even more disappointed that they decided to move up dinner. The next day, the plan was to go to Magic Kingdom, and I once again slept in and got to the park later than everyone else. This time though, we were able to meet up with everyone. However, at some point after getting off of a ride, everyone had left without my fiance and I, even though we were on the same ride, and they would have had to wait maybe a single minute for us. This left me extremely annoyed. After some time, I recalled that I had Brad's location, and I checked it only to find that they had left the park and gone to a bar without us. Well, feeling incredibly hurt, I then created a group chat with all 8 people to explain that I wanted to spend time with everyone and asked that they let me know when they were doing things so that my fiance and I could join them. They were receptive to this. However, the trend soon continued on. Additionally, we failed to get access to one of the bars we were going to meet them at because the elevator wouldn't take us to the floor, and we were also late for dinner because we let everyone else get ahead of us and missed the bus. We were also blamed for a prank that someone was pulling within the suite, where a new victim would find a puddle of coffee under their pillow every night. Eventually, I reached out to my cousin, who we will call Josh, who seemed to be the source of this hostility, and I simply asked if there was any kind of issue. He then said that our tardiness bothered him, and we ended up getting into it for a bit with no real resolution. On the last day, they all had dinner without inviting us. Before this, I had texted to ask what they were up to, and they replied that they were stuck in the rain. And when I pressed further, they doubled down, and I just took the hint. We left the next day early in the morning to catch our flights, and I sent a text saying goodbye, expressing thanks and wishing everybody a safe trip. A few of them replied, but I would say that things were definitely left on bad terms. And I thought it was over, but it honestly still keeps me up sometimes. And to this day, I still cannot figure out what went wrong or if I'm to blame. So am I the jerk here? What should I do? Okay, you're probably not gonna like me saying this, but yes, you are the jerk. You slept in literally 2 of the days that they were trying to go out and do something as a family. They invited you to go to Disney with them, not for you to be late all because you're like, oh, I'm gonna sleep in. Like, seriously, just set an alarm on your phone and call it good. Or even set up like 20 alarms, whatever it takes to wake up. Like, if I had somebody I had invited to be a part of my group when I went to Disney World and they didn't show up on time for anything, I would feel incredibly offended and super annoyed. Like, at that point, I would just think to myself, yeah, they definitely don't want to spend any time with me. So yes, you absolutely are the jerk in this situation, because the way you blew off your cousins is absolutely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for telling my friend to stop bringing up religion so incessantly anytime we visit our other friend who's in a mental health hospital? Because right now, there's been a falling out in our friend group, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female, and I've been a part of a friend group since middle school and the beginning of high school. One of my friends, who we will call Sarah, has been deeply depressed for the past 2 years. She is seeing a lot of doctors and has been on many different medications. And recently, she was admitted into a mental hospital. Through that very hard time, we all try to support her as much as possible, which includes us going to visit her at least twice a week. Well, she's been in the hospital for around a month and a half now, and we've gone to visit her many times. Now, each time we visit her, one of my friends that I will call Mary talks about religion. For context, we were all in a very private Catholic school, and while some of us don't believe in God or aren't very religious, many of my friends are believers. And I know it was Mary's way of trying to be supportive and to help Sarah according to what she personally believes, but it sometimes felt a bit insensitive. She would say a lot of things like, "I'll pray for you, God will help you," and this was every time Sarah talked about struggling or when Sarah mentioned how bored she was. Mary would then say, "Oh, you could read the Bible." And yes, I know she meant to be nice and wanted to help, but it felt a bit weird, especially since we all know that Sarah doesn't believe in God and has had some bad experiences with religion in the past. The last time we all went to see her, which was 2 days ago, Sarah mentioned that it had been a really bad week, and she had been having these really dark thoughts, if you know what I mean. Well, when she told us that, Mary immediately screamed. She said to her, "You can't do that, you'll go to Hades." Now, considering the state that Sarah was in and what she had just told us, I felt like that was the worst possible reaction. Now, I was a bit angry at her, so I looked at her and I said something like, "Could you please stop bringing up religion for 2 seconds? Not all of us care about that." And after that, she got upset and ended up leaving the hospital. While most of my friends agreed with me and think it was inappropriate of Mary to say that, some are defending her, which has created a lot of tension in our group, and a fight like this is the last thing that Sarah needs, I think. So I tried to talk to Mary to make things better and tried to explain to her why I said what I said, but she then got super angry at me and said that I was disrespecting her religion. I feel bad about all of this, partly because Mary was a good friend, so I'm sad that we're fighting, but also because the situation is making it worse for Sarah. Now, I really want to fix this, so if I was in the wrong, please tell me, and I'll try to understand and apologize to Mary. And if I'm not sure what else I can do to make her understand that I'm not insulting her or her religion. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk for telling Mary off, because what she was doing is not helping. Literally, she's just making things worse, and now your friend group is having some kind of fallout all because of her weird attitude. And that is not fair for your friend who's literally in a mental health hospital. So no, you're not the jerk for calling her out. She shouldn't be doing that anyways. This is not the time to be injecting that into Sarah's situation. If anything, now's the time to listen to her and be supportive. She's in the right place for this kind of thing, so she's clearly getting the help necessary to make it through this. And I can understand if Mary said this maybe once or twice, but now it's becoming so incessant that literally anyone would get annoyed by this. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for not pushing for my wife to have a bigger role in my daughter's wedding? Because as it stands right now, my wife, who is my daughter's stepmom, literally isn't doing anything at the moment. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my ex and I weren't together very long when we had our daughter, who we will call Riley. We broke up while my ex was still pregnant, and a year and a half later, my ex married her husband, who we will call Philip. Riley was with me every Tuesday and then every other weekend with split holidays. As she lived with her mom and Philip more, he became a father figure to her. She doesn't call him dad, but has made it clear that she thinks that she has 2 dads. I've never been threatened by Philip and have a lot of respect for him. He, my ex, and I all get along really well. Fast forward, and I married my wife when Riley was 13 years old, and while the two of them do get along, they aren't as close as she is to Philip. I know she doesn't consider her another mother figure, and I was okay with this, as Philip had been in my daughter's life longer and was around her. Riley was always very polite and considerate towards my wife, and I could tell that my wife was hurt that they weren't closer, but I didn't want to push the issue. Eventually, my wife and I had a son together. Fast forward to now, and Riley is in her mid-20s and is getting married. I'm walking her down the aisle with Philip on her other arm. My son is going to be a junior groomsman, and my ex is being escorted by her father down the aisle as well. Riley's siblings from her mom's side are also in the wedding party. When my wife asked Riley what her role was, my daughter said she wanted her to sit up front and she'll be in family photos. My wife asked about a special dress, and Riley said they could go shopping together, but she didn't care what she wears. She doesn't have to match the bridal party or anything. Well, my wife is very hurt and wants a larger role in the wedding. She wants to walk our son down the aisle, but Riley said her sister on her mom's side, who's very close in age with him, is walking with him as they're a junior bridesmaid. My wife kept suggesting other ways that she could walk down the aisle, and Riley gently shut her down. I wasn't here for the conversation and only found out about it after the fact. My wife then came to me and says I need to convince my daughter to give her some role in the wedding, but I simply say that it's my daughter's day and I'm not going to tell her who gets what role. She will have the opportunity to do mother of the groom stuff if and when our son ever gets married. She said that Philip has a big role and he even gets to dance with my daughter at the wedding, but I pointed out that Philip has been in her life since she was 10 months old and he literally helped raise her. But Riley and my wife don't have that dynamic. My wife is now very upset with me and says that I'm enabling my daughter in excluding her, but I seriously don't feel that this is my place. So am I the jerk for not pushing the matter more? Because right now I'm still incredibly annoyed. No, there's nothing to push here. In my opinion, your wife is being weird. Riley literally does not have the connection with her that she does with Philip. So for your wife to be like, wow, this isn't fair, you need to push for this, I could do all this other stuff, like that's super obnoxious, and it's like, oh my god, please take the hint. So truly, the way your wife is acting is super weird, and in my opinion, it's just really embarrassing overall. Am I the jerk for returning my daughter's graduation money, all because she dropped out of college halfway through the first semester? Here's what happened. Okay, so we held a graduation party for my daughter, and most of our friends and family came. Even those who couldn't attend sent cards with money. My daughter had received a large scholarship that she had worked hard to get, and had been accepted to our local university. Now, I paid into a college fund for her for most of her life, but that only covered the tuition. Room and board, fees, living expenses, and books all had to be covered from her savings, student loans, and the gifts that she received for graduation. Those gifts were over $3,000 and helped ensure that she would be able to attend. Well, halfway through the first semester, she decided college wasn't for her. Not that it was too hard, she just didn't want to go. Now she wants to drop out after this semester and work on becoming a bartender. And that's fine, I mean, it's her life, she is over 18 years old, but the gifts that she got were for college. And right now, I'm making her return the money, what's left of it at least, because it was a sacrifice for many of the people who gave it to her. So truly, am I the jerk for making my daughter do this? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I absolutely think you are the jerk, because this was a graduation present. It wasn't a going to college present, it was a gift that she was given after she graduated high school. So for you to be like, oh, you're not going to college? Time to return everything that you just got from people. That was a sacrifice and you're wasting it. Like, what are you doing? That's so weird. It's also so controlling and so toxic. There's no reason to act that way, and I just can't understand someone actually doing that to their kid. Like, if I gave a gift or gave some money to someone who was graduating, and then their mom comes back and says, we need to return this, they're not going to college, I would be like, wait a second, what are you doing? I gave this to him because it was a graduation gift, which by the way is not that unusual, especially when you consider that some people just never go to college, which also is completely fine. So yes, you definitely are the jerk for forcing her to do this, because she absolutely deserves to have those gifts. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive nearly 2 hours just to deliver a box of chocolates to my boss, which resulted in me getting kicked out of his studio? Because right now I'm very confused and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female and I work for an artist in LA. Before I went on a trip to France, I offered to bring my boss something as a gift because we have a friendly working relationship. He asked for chocolate and he even gave me $100 to buy it. Well, I bought the chocolates and messaged him when I got back, but he suggested that I drive to his place 45 minutes away on a Sunday just to give it to him. Now, I felt it was a bit much to drive that far outside of working hours just to deliver chocolates, so I delayed it, thinking that I would give them to him the next time that I saw him. Throughout the week, his other assistant and I tried to coordinate a time for the delivery, but plans kept falling through. Once because she didn't respond, and another because she messaged me too late the day before, and my day was already full. Finally, I went to work this morning on a Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning, but in my rush to be on time, I forgot the chocolates. When I arrived, my boss was silently pressuring me to go back and get them. He turned what felt like a request into an order. He was acting really authoritative and strange. I was cleaning the studio, and when I finished, he gave me an ultimatum. Either I drive back and get the chocolates, which would be a 1.5 hour drive round trip in LA traffic, and I needed to do this right then and there, or we were done working together. Feeling like the whole situation was absurd, I tried to talk to him, but he got aggressive and kicked me out of the studio, all without paying me for the day. He said he didn't care about the past and just wanted his chocolates or we are done. And at that point, I felt like a peon. What started as a friendly gesture turned into an order. I was willing to deliver the chocolates the next day, but he insisted on immediate delivery and kicked me out when I questioned his reaction and why I felt weird just to be forced to drive 1.5 hours just for that. He literally did not even want to have a calm discussion. So am I the jerk for not driving back to get the chocolates and refusing his ultimatum? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Yeah, your boss sounds like a piece of garbage, and the fact that he expected you to drop everything that you were doing that day and go after these stupid chocolates right then and there, that in my opinion is so weird and so toxic. Anytime a boss gives you an ultimatum, especially when it's something ridiculous, for me that's a big red flag that yes, I really do need to get out of here. Now you could have taken the other route of being like, oh okay, I can see this is really important to you, so I'll go get it. And then after that, like look for a new job right away. But I also like the fact that you stood your ground and said, no, I'm not doing this. This is incredibly weird. So no, you're not the jerk for putting your foot down, because this guy's demands were absolutely unacceptable. My entitled friend has moved into my house and has yet to do anything with their life, expecting me to bankroll their entire situation while also demanding that I save money at the same time. And I'm honestly just wanting them to leave because I'm so exhausted and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I let my friend move in because they literally had nowhere else to go. And this is all a lot on me because I should have talked more about what I expected. I am okay with helping them out, but I feel like they just expect me to bankroll them. I have bought a lot of stuff because they told me that we need it, and a lot of it, yes, comes in handy, but we could honestly do without it. I ask them what they want when I make a grocery order, and so because of that, my bill is more than twice what it was when it was just me. But then they go out and order DoorDash all the time, even though they say they don't have money to help out with the expenses. I am so broke, and my car payment is past due, and then they just sit there and try to tell me what to do. In fact, tonight, they told me to get a cheaper car insurance to save money. They also told me that we just absolutely need an expensive tool. They apparently started a furniture flipping business, and they would need this tool for that specific business. And they also said they're saving all their money to buy a truck because they need that for the furniture flipping business they haven't even started yet. For reference, they work freelance, and they had told me they were paying $350 a month in rent in the place they were at before, so I thought they would at least be able to contribute a little bit. Now, they have bought furniture because they said we needed it, but again, while it is good to have, what is important right now is being able to pay the bills, and that should come before anything else. I have a full-time, very high-stress job, and we are very short-handed right now. I suck at setting boundaries, and this entire situation is horrible for my mental health. I just want them gone, but they have nowhere else to go. I'm afraid to try and talk to them. There have already been several things in my house that either broke or are not working since they've been here. I don't think it's on purpose, but they are not gentle, and they don't seem to have respect for my stuff. I feel like they think I'm just gonna sacrifice everything else to buy them the stuff that they want because they think they deserve my money and deserve to tell me what I should buy for my house or for them instead of letting me decide for myself. What should I do? Oh man, if this was me, I would have already started the eviction process. Look, I totally get it that this is your friend and you care about them and they have supposedly nowhere else to go, but from what you're describing, this person is clearly taking advantage of you. Seriously, like think about it for a second. They don't contribute to the house, they're asking you to buy everything, and yet they DoorDash food all the time. They're breaking stuff and things are going missing, and they're saying they're gonna do something with their life, but then again, they don't. And it's like, wait a second, what are we doing here? For starters, yes, you absolutely should not have let them in your house without some kind of like clear expectation, but also the fact that they're now here and still not doing anything is more than enough reason to be like, listen, you either pay rent or you have gotta go. Because what you're describing right now does not sound reasonable, and in my opinion, I think it definitely is time for them to move out. My entitled family have found a way to completely ruin my birthday for quite literally the 5th year in a row. And even though my birthday is so close to Christmas, and I've dealt with this for so many years, I finally have decided to put my foot down and say that I want a separate celebration, resulting in some of the most petty and passive-aggressive treatment I've ever received in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so my birthday is December 28th, and my parents have consistently ignored it throughout my entire life. We usually visit family that lives about 4 hours away during the holidays, or more often than not, the weekend after the holidays if the holiday is in the middle of the week. This means almost every year, we're up there on the 28th. Sometimes it's not so bad, because maybe the 28th is on a Friday or a Sunday, and we do the Christmas celebration on Saturday. But even then, it still goes completely uncelebrated, and I'm lucky to even get a happy birthday from them. I've expressed my dislike of this subtlety throughout my entire life, but not as directly as I should have until now. And even now, I'm still not sure what to say. And the thing is, they did the same thing at my wedding. We announced our engagement, and my sister decided to get engaged and announced hers right after us, and hold the ceremony in the same year, just slightly after what we would be doing. Some of my family came in from across the country for her wedding, but not for mine. I have a sister who was born in early January and pretends to relate, but as far as I can remember, we've never had to celebrate the birth of what many people consider to be the Lord and Savior on the same day as when we celebrate her birthday. Mine, on the other hand, is usually a crapshoot on if I'm going to have a birthday or not, because here's how it usually plays out. We go visit my family the first weekend after Christmas. We stay at their house with my entire family, and this is a big house with many rooms as we do have a big family. The whole family is there when my birthday rolls around. We wake up, maybe one person acknowledges my birthday and even says happy birthday to begin with, and if nobody else is around, that's all I'm gonna get from anybody all day. If others are around and hear them say that, they will throw out a half-hearted, "Oh hey, happy birthday," and then move on to talk about Christmas dinner, when we're gonna open Christmas presents, how excited we are to watch the two kids open a mountain of gifts, etc. My birthday having yet again effectively been overshadowed by that long-haired stranger from 2,000 years ago that nobody has ever met. Now, I know I sound bitter and probably selfish, but if you knew anything about me, you would know that things like this don't usually bother me. For my entire life, my birthday has been smashed together with Christmas. So many celebrations, or lack thereof, have passed by without fazing me. Many gifts have been forgotten. Or worse, they would do a, "Oh, here's your Christmas present and also your birthday present." Also, many well wishes have gone, well, completely unwished. Again, this stuff used to not faze me at all, because I really was happy with just a simple happy birthday, and that's all I would ever want, and it would make up for anything else. But this year, my parents have almost purposefully gone out of their way to ruin everything for me. Now, if you don't know, Christmas this year is on a Wednesday, making the 28th on a Saturday. It's rare that my birthday's on a Saturday, but it happened like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was awful, specifically because Saturday is always the chosen delayed Christmas day. My entire family was there. My wife wished me happy birthday, my parents did, I think maybe my sister did, and that was it. The entire rest of the day, my birthday was just Christmas to everyone but my wife, who went out of her way any way that she could to try and make me feel special. She asked why I wasn't really that upset about it until now, and I said I guess I was just used to it my whole life. But now that it's literally my family's Christmas day on my birthday, which happens every now and then, I was pretty disheartened. Watching a couple of entitled, somewhat spoiled brats who already have everything in the world open up a mountain of gifts on your birthday would probably hurt your feelings as well. So, knowing that the 28th was a Saturday this year, I told my mom when we were doing the family holiday planning if she could please try and schedule our trip to the family the weekend after Christmas or even after my birthday. That way we would be doing Christmas on like New Year's or something like that. She said sure, and I said it doesn't matter what day, just not the Saturday after Christmas. Any day but my birthday. My wife even chimed in and said that I haven't had a birthday in over 5 years. Please don't plan it for his birthday again. And my mom just pretended to care and said, okay, I'll try my best. Well, she then calls a few days ago and said my sister can only get her stepson the weekend after Christmas. So we will probably break it up, and they will likely go up on the 28th and we'll go on the following weekend. And I'm thinking to myself, fine, my entire family won't be there for Christmas, but hey, I get to see my sister all the time. This is not that big of a deal. At least I can have actual Christmas with my parents, celebrate my birthday with my wife, then go see my family the following weekend for delayed Christmas, right? But unfortunately, I was completely wrong. Today, I was in the neighborhood, so I stopped at my parents' house. We got to talking, and my mom brought up our Christmas plans. She said to me, hey, since we are breaking it up, we're probably only going to go up once instead of both times. Is that okay? Now, not knowing what she was getting at, I said to her, sure, and then I said, okay, well, why would that be an issue? She then said to me, okay, since your sister has her stepson on the 28th, we'll probably go up with her then as well. Already, I was a little disheartened because somehow she found a way to do the near exact opposite of what I had asked and how we had organized the family Christmas to be on the 28th. But I didn't know the extent of it. She said she wanted to go up only the one time, and she chose that one time to be with my sister, and goes on to tell me that that's when my uncles, my aunts, my niece and nephew, and pretty much the entire family will be there. Right then, flashbacks to my wedding silently play in my head. So, quite literally, the one thing I asked for Christmas was to be able to have a birthday of some kind, and she does the exact opposite and finds a way to make my entire family forget about my birthday once again. I'll be lucky if I even get a text message from any of them, since they'll all be up there together without my wife and we usually disregard our phones when we're up there. I know this sounds bratty or even self-absorbed, but you have to understand, I have been dealing with this crap my entire life and barely said a word to anybody. She then asked me what I want in my food, and I say no dairy because it sets my wife's stomach on fire. But then she proceeds to put dairy in everything and scold me for not being grateful. She asked one year what kind of coat I wanted, and I said any classic button-up pea coat. It doesn't matter, just one that doesn't have a zipper? Well, she goes out of her way to get me a coat with a zipper so she can see if I'll be thankful enough. It's like my entire life she has purposefully done these small things and just slightly messed up because she wants to. And I'm not sure, but it seems like she wants to test my gratitude or something like that. My wife describes it best when she says, well, your mom knows exactly what she's doing when she just completely disregards your wishes. And it's always just small enough so that you look like a jerk if you say anything about it, but also big enough to let you know that she doesn't respect your wishes, even after you were directly clear about them. So now this will be something like the 5th birthday in a row that will be ignored. It will be completely overshadowed by Christmas, except this time I won't even be with my family because I made a promise to myself, and I'm not gonna let them rope me into the lie of saying, oh, just go open your birthday, it'll be great. Because you know what, at least I'll be with my wife. And even though we have a contributed total of maybe $50 to our name, she has promised to make my 34th birthday very special, considering that my 29th through 33rd were completely ignored, and all the ones before that were at the very least uncelebrated. So truly, I believe her. As long as she says happy birthday, and I know she will, and as long as I get to wake up next to her, it will probably be the best birthday I've ever had since the pandemic. I love that woman with all of my heart. And for anyone who would say that 34 is too old to care about your birthday, you can just forget it. You are special no matter what your age, and the day you were born into this world is very, very important. To you Christmas babies out there, though I can never truly relate, please know that you are not alone, as my family makes a habit of delaying Christmas to my birthday. So say a prayer or something like that to that hippie who was supposed to bring about world peace or whatever, and then spend the rest of the day focusing on yourself, because trust me, you absolutely deserve it. Wow, your mom is super passive aggressive and incredibly petty. She literally went out of her way to ruin your birthday once again. Like, this really is so awful because she knew what she was doing. Like, your wife is 100% correct. She's doing it just enough to like piss you off, but also so little that if you do freak out about it, you're gonna look like the jerk and she's gonna look like the victim. Like, this is all pure manipulation in my mind, and that's all this will ever be. So the fact that she can't even follow this one wish that you had, that you just wanted to have a birthday of your own, in my opinion says everything you need to know about her, because you know for a fact now, without any kind of shadow of a doubt, that she's not going to respect your wishes. She's done this many times, and it sounds like your family has slighted you over and over again. So hopefully you stick to your values and you say, no, I'm not showing up, because the way your family is treating you and your birthday, in my opinion, is super dismissive and incredibly disrespectful. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled grandma keeps failing her children and then ends up suing one of her daughters after her daughter denies her the right at seeing her grandkids. And I'm honestly still blown away by this situation because my grandmother truly is a terrible person. Here's what happened. Okay, so here's some clarification that you need to know to understand the whole story just a bit better. My wife has a half-sister. My maternal grandmother had my mom with her first husband. This was all not planned, but fast forward 8 years later and she cheated on him with a family friend, and then my aunt was born. Now, besides my grandma being an absolutely naive person, her now husband, who is the father of my aunt, is also an absolute jerk because he knows how to perfectly manipulate her. And trust me, there are so many stories I could tell about them, it is absolutely insane. But let's just focus on this one first. This all happened in the middle of 2005. I was only 6 years old back then, so I don't know all the details, but I do know enough to tell this story. I have an older sister by 2 years and a younger brother who was born 5 years and 9 months after me. Just when my brother was born, my mom, of course, had a lot going on with 3 kids. Well, my grandmother demanded my mom to drive me and my sister over to her, which, by the way, this is a 2-hour drive one way. And this is all so she can hang out with us for a weekend. Mind you, she was not working, she was living off her husband's money, all while my mom had 3 children and quite a big house to take care of. My mother told my grandma that she could absolutely pick us up, but my mom cannot drive 4 hours in total with my little brother, since she definitely would have to take him with her, especially when driving my sister and me over there. Now, she could either do that, or she could of course also come visit us over the weekend. Well, my grandma refused, and that's when the nightmare began. She didn't understand why my mom wanted to drive a total of 8 hours, 4 hours to bring us and 4 hours to pick us up. My parents then cut off contact with her after that because she also did many other harmful things to my mom's mental health. But trust me, that's another story for another time. Anyways, many years later, my mom and grandma talked it out and we had contact with her once again. And this was just for a little bit, and honestly, it was good that she lives quite far away from us, years. Being with her and her husband for 1 week was an absolute nightmare when I was 17, and I very much regretted this stay. When contact came back, my grandmother often whined about how horrible it was for her to not see us for a few years, and she very much regrets this time. Well, fast forward to 2017, which is 5 years since my mom and grandma talked things out, and I just finished up high school, and my maternal grandfather was very sick. He was suffering from cancer. It was then that my grandmother asked my mom if she could tell him that my mom's sister was not his daughter. And yes, this is exactly as bad as you think it is. She kept all of that a secret for maybe 40 years? And she took a lot of money from my grandfather to support his supposed daughter. You know, the daughter that isn't even his. Well, my mom and my aunt both said that would be very selfish for her to do, especially when he's right at the edge of passing away. She agreed and told them both that she would keep it a secret. Well, a few days later, my mother enters my grandpa's house and he confronts her with a letter he had gotten from my grandma, his ex-wife, about my aunt not being his daughter. Apparently, he always suspected this, but did not try to confirm anything. Now, he gladly was not mad at my mom for never telling him, because he knows that she was just manipulated by her mother to not tell anyone. Not even me and my siblings knew about this before this letter, because my mom didn't want us kids to accidentally tell grandpa. And sadly enough, he ended up passing away a few weeks after this letter. Now, of course, my mom and aunt were super pissed off at her, but my grandma did not see her mistake. So my aunt also decided to cut ties with her this time, which is something my mom also did, of course, with me and my siblings blocking her on social media and deciding to block her phone number. And as you can probably guess, she also started a fight with my aunt now. My aunt has 2 daughters who were about the same age as my siblings and me when my mom and grandma had their first cutoff. And my grandmother absolutely did not want to lose these 2 like she did with my siblings and me. I mean, we don't really have a connection to her, obviously, since we didn't see her for years, and then also only for a few short times. My aunt said that she does not want her to be in contact with the children right now, and believe it or not, my grandma actually freaking sued her for taking away her grandchildren. And it's like, excuse me? You didn't help raise them, and also you live 1 hour away from them. Why in the world do you think you have the right to see them if their parents decide that you're not good for them? Sadly, the judge also was a grandmother of a child and had some kind of compassion for my grandma, so she gave her all the help that she could. So basically, as a result, my cousins had to write her letters once a month, and they weren't even close to being able to write yet. So of course, my aunt wrote those letters. And trust me, this is just the tip of the iceberg with my grandmother, because she has caused nothing but problems in my family. Yeah, your grandma sounds like an instigator and honestly not a good person. Who in their right mind would sue a family member to see their grandkids, especially when the parents are like, yeah, you're not good for my family? Like, that is ridiculous, and there's honestly no precedent for that. I just can't believe that a judge actually would fall for that and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna help you out. So truly, I really hope you don't have to deal with your grandma for very long, because the way she's acting, in my opinion, is completely insane. Am I the jerk for not wanting to show up for my mom's husband's family after they spent years making fun of my biological father? Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old female, and my mom has been married to her husband for 7 years, and my dad has been out of my life for almost as many years. But even after my mom and Ted got married, he wasn't a big part of my life. Ted is not his real name. You see, my dad is mentally ill. There's a family history of it on his side of the family, and he's got it bad and isn't capable of being a good dad or really a reliable person. Last I remember of him, he couldn't really take care of himself. But, and this is a big thing, I still love him, and I have some good memories of him. Ted, as a stepfather, and I will be calling him my mom's husband, is really deserving of more or less depending on your view overall. He provides for me, he calls me his daughter, he tries to spend time with me, offer to adopt me, and provide for me well into the future. I said no to the adoption and didn't really let the incentive of being provided for long-term sway me. My reason for this is due to how often he talks garbage about my dad, and my mom lets him, so I have issues with her as well. But the focus of my post is more about Ted and his extended family. Ted is always so fast to remind me that my dad chose illness over me, that he has never paid child support and has a lot of child support debt to his name. He discouraged me looking at photos of my dad or his side of the family and would tell me that he was a better choice for a dad and his family were a way better family overall. Ted's family also repeat this to me a lot. I mean, I get reminded every time I see them that Ted stuck around, Ted stepped up, and that Ted isn't some crazy waste of life, which is what they call my dad. Well, last year it was very clear that I had inherited the mental illness gene. My mental illness is OCD, and I've got it really bad because of it. A part of me me always knew that I was different. I mean, I had strict rules for stuff most people didn't think twice about, like making my bed, writing, bathing, or showering, and I also freaked out a lot if I couldn't make things fit into my school binder, or if I couldn't fit my books or video games on my shelf. My mom and Ted saw it too, but my mom didn't want to believe that I could be ill, and Ted actually believed that his influence could prevent this. A crisis at the start of the year proved it all wrong, and I finally got diagnosed. I even spent some time being an inpatient because of how bad it got. When I got home and Ted was alone with me, or me and my half-siblings, I would hear his family talk about me in ways that made me so uncomfortable. They actually said that rejecting him made me sick because it pushed me more towards my dad than Ted. Ted's parents wanted to have a big family dinner yesterday, and I was told repeatedly that they wanted me there. And I was told by them directly and by Ted and my mom. But you know what? I chose not to go. And I said that I could not get off my planner right now, which is completely true. But I just knew I couldn't be around them. My mom and Ted weren't happy, and they said that I had no trouble going off my planner to see my grandparents or my 3 uncles and cousins. They then told me that I was being totally unfair to Ted's family by not showing up and treating them like they're not family. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, for starters, you're definitely not the jerk for not wanting to show up for this stupid side of your family, because the second Ted actually said that your dad chose illness was the very moment that I realized that Ted and his family are a bunch of narcissistic weirdos. Nobody chooses a legitimate mental illness, and I'm not talking about people who like make up a mental illness just to look for attention. I'm talking about people who actually have some struggles that they cannot deal with. People who have lifelong problems that just completely derail their entire life without some kind of like medical intervention. Those types of mental illnesses. Like seriously, why would anybody in their life choose that? So the fact that your stepfather thinks that's a choice and that your dad decided to be that way is just insane in my opinion. So no, that side of your family is awful. They are incredibly toxic, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be distancing myself from them. Am I the jerk for saying that I'm gonna sue both the school and the family of my daughter's bully after my daughter's been bullied nonstop while at school? Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I have an 11-year-old daughter who's been going through some severe bullying at school, and it just keeps getting worse. It started off with just name calling, but has gotten worse over the past couple of weeks. For context, she is adopted, which is something we've always been open about and celebrated as part of her story. But recently, some kids found out about her adoption and started saying horrible things, telling her stuff like her birth mother didn't want her. They tell her that she's unwanted and that she is a reject, which is not the case. Her mother loved her very much, to the point that she literally gave her life so that we could have her. Now, if this wasn't bad enough, a few days ago, she came home in tears with her hair butchered. They had apparently cut off 2 inches of her ponytail while in class, and they were all taunting her with names and laughing at her reaction. They will then follow her through the halls to make fun of her on a regular basis. Both my husband and myself have been in touch with the school about the bullying more times than I can count. I emailed, I called them, I even showed up in person to speak with teachers and the principal, but all I got were empty promises that they would look into it. Nothing changed, and my daughter's mental health has taken a hit. She's anxious, she's struggling to sleep, and now she begs us not to send her to school. Finally, out of frustration and feeling like no one was taking this seriously, we reached out to a lawyer to explore legal actions against both the school and the bully's family. And funny enough, only when the school and her parents learned that we were considering a legal action did they finally start to act. Suddenly, the school calls me to say they're moving the bully out of my daughter's class and claim they had a talk with her. The girl's parents also reached out, saying that they had a talk with their daughter and they promised it would stop. But honestly, I don't believe them. It feels like they're saying this just to get me to back off and avoid the legal consequences. I worry that once the dust settles, things will go right back to how they were, and my daughter will still be dealing with all of this. My family thinks that I should give the school and the parents a chance, especially now that they're finally taking action. But I feel that all of this is just for show. So am I the jerk for moving forward with legal action, even though the school and the bully's parents now claim that they're handling it? Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. As someone who got bullied a lot in like elementary school and middle school, I have a lot of sympathy for your daughter and for you as a family. Because in most cases, at least in my situation, the bully was never punished properly, and this stuff absolutely kept happening. Because you're right, once the dust settles, it's just gonna happen again. So no, you're not the jerk if you did want to move forward by suing these people, because the way they treated your daughter, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable. My crazy religious parents have been following my boyfriend and I's every single move, claiming that God was telling them where we were, as they have literally shown up in places that we've been at, despite the fact that we don't even live in the same city. And I'm honestly so freaked out that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female and I live on my own out of my parents' house. I have a bit of a situationship going on with my friend who we will call David. We had a fling a few months ago, and now it's kind of happening again. It started out just hanging out and enjoying David's company, then it slowly turned into more again. The thing is, my parents knew about the first fling. David used to be inseparable from my dad. They were like father and son in a way. That is, until David and I had our fling. Now, my dad is trying to control him, telling him he is to have no contact with me outside of a group chat that we're all in, which is something that the both of us think is really stupid. A few weeks ago, we were hanging out and we went to Five Below to get snacks and just to hang out. And while we were there, my parents walked in. Now, here's the thing. They don't live in the same city as me. I live about 20 minutes away from them, and they just randomly showed up at the store right by my house. They claimed it was to find batteries, but at that point, my dad confronted David and said that he told him not to be around me, and he told me that he isn't going to care anymore and not to go crying to him when I get heartbroken. My mom then texted me later saying that it was totally the Holy Spirit revealing that something was happening so they could intervene. Now, I'm kind of glad that that happened because after David and I left, that opened up a conversation about what's going on between us. We both enjoy our company and we both have feelings for each other, but we are taking it slow. But while we were talking, my dad is texting me 3-page essays on why I'm stupid for not doing as he says and that he is no longer invested. He told me David only wants me for one thing and doesn't care about me as much as he does, and that if David is in love with me, he would ask him for permission to date his daughter and play by his rules. David then told me that he does really care about me and that it's a lie that he doesn't. Anyways, we decided to continue hanging out, especially since my dad said he no longer cares. We both have annual passes to Disneyland, so we decided to go together after work. While we were there, my mom and dad texted me asking if I was at Disneyland, and I just ignored the text messages. We were there till closing, and as we were walking out, my dad walked up to us with a Starbucks bag and asked if we could talk. Now, David kept walking and said no, and of course, me wanting to keep the peace, begged David if he would just do this, and he said no. I then told him that I'm his ride, and he said he would just Uber home, and I told him no. So I just left my parents there and I left. I then cried in the car, and David told me that it's not my fault. While I was in the car, I texted my mom how she even knew that I was there, and that's when she said to me, "Oh, God is watching." And I asked again how she knew, and she said she would meet me at my house and tell me, and I said no, you will not meet me at my house. That's weird. Mom, how did you know I was at Disneyland? She then stopped messaging me, and my dad messaged me the following: "Listen, if you want to know how we knew you were there, you can talk to us in person. We brought peace and we tried to be loving, even though I knew David was doing stuff that he said he wouldn't do. I just want him to care for you as much as I do and your mother does, but you're gonna find out, honey, and it's gonna be really sad. He had every opportunity right there to confess his love for you and to ask us for space. We could have had a good discussion, but instead he was a coward and ran away. From here on out, you are not to come into my home. We can meet in public to talk about how we knew you were at Disneyland because we had every intention of telling you, and that was gonna be part of the conversation. I've never lied to you, and I never will. I do not have anything to hide. That conversation could have been great, and we're still willing to have it, but David sadly is not. I did nothing to him to deserve the treatment that we got from him, and I've never treated him in any way other than the way I would treat a good son, and I hope and pray that he doesn't do what I know he's going to do. Wolves come into the sheep, and they separate the sheep from the flock, and then they devour the sheep, but the good shepherd will protect you, and if David ever was a sheep, he will listen to the voice of God, the people that love him and cherish him. Listen, I love you, and I wish nothing but the best for you. If you want to talk, we are willing to talk to you about anything you want to know." I responded by saying, "Dad, I don't expect him to be in love with me. That's way too soon. And if you don't want to hide the truth, just explain how you knew I was there. I will not be meeting in person for a conversation that can be had over text message." He then responded by saying, "Then don't meet with me. That is how it's going to come out because you need to see my demeanor and everything. And shame on you guys for trying to point the finger back at us. You guys are the ones that are not doing right and hiding things away. Literally every box that was checked for you to like David was erased by David. All the things that you liked about him are now gone, and it was by David's own hand. Listen, from now on, do whatever you want. I'm cutting this pain off. I mean it. Don't come by my house because we will not be able to support your drama any longer. You're gonna have to learn the hard way again. The only difference is now your mother and I are numb, and we don't feel anything. God will show you the truth, but I wanted to make sure you weren't hurt in the process. years. But after reading that, I honestly don't care if I don't meet with them or not. I can't handle the helicopter parenting anymore. And I feel that anytime I brought a boy around, my dad has to place himself in the middle by forcing the guy out. The guys that have been okay with it in the past end up not working out, all because of my fear that if my dad can control him now, my entire future will then just be controlled by him. If I don't do it their way, then I'm doing it wrong. I really like David, and he likes me. I'm 24 years old, and for once, I have a guy that doesn't run away from me, all because of my crazily super involved parents. I don't know what to do. What I'm seriously concerned about is how my parents followed me there and why. What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster actually has an update for us. Here's what they had to say. Okay, first of all, I decided I'm going to let myself settle for a few days. I'm going to agree to hear my parents out just to know how they got my location. As controlling as they are, I do still love them, and I can say with certainty they have always been honest. My dad said he will tell me how they found out I was there in person. Well, to fast forward things, I texted my dad and I told him in the next few days I would be willing to talk. He then told me that I need to find a new phone provider. So I think that cancels them out tracking me via phone provider, especially now since this is another attempt to control by using fear of cutting off a service that I can very easily get on my own. Also, in case anyone was wondering, I looked for any AirTags and I couldn't find anything. And he still refused to tell me how he tracked me unless I meet up with him, my mom, and our pastor from our church. So fast forward to present day and I decided to meet up with them. My pastor and his wife had my back 100%. My dad told me how they found me, and I guess I was still sharing my location with him on my phone through messages, even though he said that God revealed that he still had my location. My parents then drove to my house to see if my car was there. They saw David's car there as we did carpool to Disney, and then waited outside of Disneyland until we left. I told them that's freaking weird, and that makes me very uncomfortable, but they said they did it out of love because they were concerned. And basically, my pastor and his wife are 100% behind my back regarding dating who I want and not letting my parents decide what I do. I should have the opportunity to decide if I like the guy first, one-on-one, and then bring him to meet my parents. Now, it is a little different because we have all known David for years, but still, I have the right to decide when my parents will be involved. My dad did not like this, and he said he would leave the church and then block me on all of his social medias. He said he can't stand around and wait for my heart to get broken, and the whole time he was trashing on David. He called me a few names that were extremely hurtful, and I was glad to see the pastor had my back. Well, they told me I was no longer under his roof, and that I'm not doing anything wrong. The conversation then ended with my dad claiming he wants to go no contact, which I'm sure he won't follow through on. It sucks because I love my parents, but in my dad's eyes, if he can't control this aspect of my life, then I don't get to have him at all. And honestly, that's probably how it's going to be for quite a while. Wow, your parents are crazy. They tried to be like, oh yeah, God revealed to us where your location is. And by the way, that God is Verizon because they gave us your location. Sorry about that. It's like, what in the world are you talking about? Why not just be honest and be like, yeah, we use your phone to track you, instead of trying to reach into the heavens and be like, oh yeah, God showed us where you were. Because clearly they're just straight up lying to you. Like, this was clearly not some kind of divine intervention. This was your parents being creepy and then trying to justify it with religion. And that is so weird and disgusting. Like, this gives people who are religious a bad name. Because I'm sorry, but your God is not telling you to stalk your daughter. So no, you haven't done anything wrong, and I'm so sorry you have to deal with your stupid parents like this. And for the sake of you and David, I honestly hope your relationship works out, because your dad and your mom, but especially your dad, have absolutely no say in what you can and cannot do. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My parents are unbearably controlling about me and my relationship, with my dad even going as far as saying that my husband is going to break my heart. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, for starters, my parents are not the greatest. I live with my spouse, and my parents think he is going to break my heart. They won't tell me anything despite me asking, and my mother just claims that it's motherly intuition. My dad thinks my other half makes me into his housemaid and babysitter, and just to be clear, I am a stay-at-home wife because I have college classes, and we do split the chores and such around the apartment. My dad does claim to think that my other half underappreciates me, and that he doesn't do enough, and that I do everything. He says it's based on what he sees when he comes to visit his and mom's house, and that my other half forgets to pick up after himself. Needless to say, my partner does clean up after himself, and he does do chores around the apartment, like deep cleaning the stovetop, the counters, sweeping, and Swiffering. He even helps with vacuuming as well. Now, I usually load the dishwasher, and he unloads the dishwasher. dishwasher. He'll load the washer and then change it to the dryer and he puts it away. In fact, this guy that I married literally went out of his way and got me a $600 treadmill so that I could stay active. He also literally got me roller skates this year, while also getting me new headphones on my birthday last year. And he did this despite the fact that he knows I don't like to be spoiled. Now, a little bit of backstory on my parents. My dad had an awful alcoholic father who would do stuff in front of him, his sisters, and his one brother, and he moved back and forth between Texas his senior year of high school, and then he joined the military. Meanwhile, my mom had a dad who passed away in her senior year of high school, and her mother went off on her, so she began to drink and then stopped. When I was a kid, my dad would throw things. He would yell, he would spank me so hard until I cried, and it was seriously just so awful. They would also take my stuff and then say they're gonna break it if I didn't behave, and then they would get angry if I tried to talk to other people at school. So because of that, I didn't really have friends. Fast forward and I eventually met my partner in 2020, not realizing at first that he would be my husband. We became friends, and then last year he asked me to be his girlfriend. Neither of us are really the proposing type of people, so my dad got angry that he didn't ask him for his blessing. He didn't propose where he got down on one knee because I don't need a fancy ring nor any kind of fancy romantic proposal. He knows that I'm not into that stuff. He came up with the idea to get married, and we were talking about tying the knot in 2026 when we had time. We found out that my insurance is kaput in 2024, so he decided to get married earlier. So I told him I didn't want to feel like I was digging for gold because I'm just marrying him earlier for health insurance, but even though it made me feel uneasy, he understood and we talked about it, and I felt a lot better. So we planned our wedding and got it done. Fast forward to my most recent visit to my parents' house, and they think he's going to break my heart. And I say this next part out loud in front of them with my significant other in the room, that if he wanted to break my heart, he would have done it a long time ago. Basically, my parents do not get along. I'm the therapist and the messenger, and their marriage is not great. It has a lot of issues. My mom has a male boss, and my dad can't work because of disabilities. So my dad thinks that my mom is having an affair, and my mom wishes my dad would stop breathing down her neck. Also, they tell me how I should live and my other half as well. And you know what? I feel like they're jealous. They wish that their only daughter was at their house, dependent on them, hearing about all of their issues all the time. These people don't even eat 3 proper meals a day. They eat breakfast and lunch, then they drink a smoothie for dinner. And honestly, the list goes on and on of how controlling my parents can truly be. Because right now, I'm seriously so done with their attitude towards me and my spouse, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, your parents sound incredibly controlling. It seems like they have everything to say about you and your spouse, and they really are just making up all kinds of stupid things about you. And it's not even fair because you didn't even do anything. So truly, for you and your spouse's sake, I hope your parents are able to back off, or at the very least, you're able to find some kind of distance from these people, because the way they're acting is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for kicking my mom out of my wedding after she literally showed up uninvited? Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female, and I've been estranged from my mom for almost 3 years now. I cut contact with her after finding out she stole $10,000 from me, put me on $50,000 of debt by stealing my social security number. She has always been very emotionally awful towards me, and she has tried everything in her power to split up my husband and I before we even got married. Well, for these reasons and many more, I decided not to invite her to my destination wedding. Fast forward, and last week was the big day, and about an hour before the ceremony, my maid of honor lets me know that my mom had shown up uninvited, meaning that she flew across the country to knowingly crash my wedding. I had my maid of honor bring her to the bridal suite, and then I spoke with her privately, and I told her that if she doesn't leave, I will make a scene and embarrass her in front of my entire family. Well, when I said that, she cried and gaslit me, but inevitably she ended up leaving. After the ceremony, several family members confronted me about it and told me that I'm in the wrong, and that I should have just let her stay because she just wants to see her first daughter get married. I know this wasn't the reason, and that it was just a power move to reinsert herself into my life, but her side of the family has been blowing up my phone ever since, telling me I'm wrong and that my husband and I need to apologize. So am I the jerk for kicking her out even though she flew to my wedding? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk, and if she wants to play this game where she wants to pretend to be the victim, then in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would start spilling the beans on everything she's done. I would talk about how she stole $10,000 from me, I would talk about the $50,000 in debt, and then I would bring up the litany of other things she's done to offend me or at least make me not want to talk to her. Like, why should you have to put up with this? Because the argument anyone could say of like, oh yeah, but it's your mother, you have to respect her. Like, no you don't, that's crazy. The mom in this story does not sound like a stable individual. If anything, anything, it sounds like someone who's crazy and out of her mind. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, and I think that you really did make the best choice, because the way your mom acted and the fact that she flew all the way out to you, in my opinion, is completely unhinged. Am I the jerk for not flying home twice in a month, all for my mother-in-law's birthday and anniversary? Because even though she's passed away, my husband demands that we still celebrate it accordingly. But at this point, I really do not know what to do. Okay, so my husband's mother passed away 3 years ago. She was diagnosed with cancer and unfortunately passed away within a year. Now, for some background, we didn't have the best relationship as she was very traditional and would make very rude and offensive comments towards me. My husband and I have the same qualifications and jobs, but I was still expected to do everything around the house, such as cooking and cleaning and all this other stuff. So we were never very close. Regardless, obviously I was there for her and my husband after her diagnosis. When we found out she was terminally ill, we were about to start our summer holidays. We are both teachers and live in another country, which is about 3 hours away from his home city by plane. We canceled all of our summer plans and flew back to spend 7 weeks with his parents, just so we could help out as much as we could. When she passed away, we both got time off work to go back home again. My current issue is that my husband and his father don't think that I'm doing enough to honor her memory. The main issue is that her anniversary is coming up soon, which of course I will fly over for and attend. However, it is also her birthday in the same month, and I'm expected to fly over again for a family meal. This means that in 1 month, I have to fly to another country twice from Friday evening to Sunday. I can't get any holiday time because of my profession. It is expensive and exhausting, as it is the most tiring time of the year, and his home city is a 2-hour drive from the airport, so that's 10 hours of traveling in 1 weekend. I am more than happy for my husband to go back as often as he needs to. I've also suggested that we find a halfway point to meet, which has been shut down. I feel like I'm being guilt-tripped, and it makes me feel like the jerk, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk here, because what's being asked of you, in my opinion, is completely unreasonable. No one in their right mind should be expected to fly to another country twice in 1 month. And this is all coming out of your pocket, by the way. Like, you're the one that's gonna have to pay for it. And to do that twice in the same month, in my opinion, is just so weird and so unnecessary. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because what he's asking of you, in my opinion, is completely unfair. Would I be the jerk if I tell my friend that I don't want to continue being roommates after our lease is up? Because right now she is really starting to offend me, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so me and my friend have been friends for years, and we've lived together on and off in the course of our friendship with no issues. The last 2 years we've been living together after both of our awful marriages ended. So when we were looking for our place to live, she refused to walk through any of the properties with me. At one point, I thought she didn't even want to move in with me at all. So I started looking at apartments for 1 bedroom and ended up signing a lease for a 1-bedroom apartment. Well, she still wanted to move in with me, so the apartment upgraded us to a 3-bedroom instead. Now, I thought this wouldn't be a big deal, but when we got here, she demanded the main bedroom and she hated everything about the apartment. When it came to the main bedroom, I refused. I told her outright that it wasn't fair for her to try and take the main bedroom when I wasn't even charging her for a full half of the rent of the apartment. And I gave her the whole backside of the apartment because she has a child, and that child and her mother should have the rooms that are next to each other. She expected me to take the room next to her kid and share a bathroom with her kid instead of taking the room with its own bathroom, which is separated on the opposite side of the apartment. Now, that was early on, and we did work through those issues, although she still complains or makes snide remarks even to this day. Skipping forward 6 months ago, she got a new dog. Now, I love animals and she already had cats to begin with. I don't own any pets myself, so I tend to give them all kinds of love. But now she's making snide comments about how I steal her animals from her, and it's so unnecessary and unprompted at times. Like, she's been calling me the animal's second mommy for months, and now all of a sudden, she's upset that the animals like to sleep with me or even play or cuddle with me at all. I've also noticed the same jealousy in regards to how her child interacts with me too. I feel like I can't do anything right in my own house, and I've also noticed issues with her listening to my conversations on the phone. She'll bring up something I mentioned to my sister when I was on the phone with her randomly as if she was part of the conversation, but she definitely wasn't. So truly, will I be the jerk if I end our living arrangements when our lease is finally up? I totally get that she's a single mom and she's struggling with money, but I just can't live like this. I cannot live where I am constantly under secret competition with somebody else. What should I do? Okay, first of all, I don't think you should ever feel bad about ending your living arrangement, because the way this lady is treating you, in my opinion, is unacceptable. unacceptable. There is no good excuse for her to be like this towards you. I don't care how crappy her life is or how badly things might be falling apart around her. That is no reason for her to treat you like garbage and basically treat you like the enemy. Because seriously, what have you done? You found an apartment for them and then you basically gave her a place to stay. Oh, and by the way, at a discounted rate than what she's ever had before. So in my opinion, I think you are well within your right to step away and be like, nope, I don't want to live with you anymore. Because her attitude, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. My psycho mom brings my ex-girlfriend to my wedding reception as her last-ditched effort to dump my bride that I literally just married so that I would get back together with my awful, controlling, and very toxic ex-girlfriend. But as a result, I kicked my mom and my ex-girlfriend out of my wedding reception, causing massive drama in my family and in my life. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I started seeing a woman who we will call June about 3 years ago. My mother has never really liked June for a couple of reasons. The main one being the fact that June didn't let my mom push her around. She kept firm boundaries, which I really admired, and she even helped me do the same. Now, my mom hated this, calling June controlling and wishing that I had not broken up with my previous girlfriend, who we will call Margot, who, by the way, my mom absolutely loved. But I was with Margot for 5 years and it was horrible. Margot was very controlling and manipulative and always guilted me into things I wasn't comfortable with. But thanks to support from friends and my sister, I was able to leave her. It was hard, but I had help, and my life has improved ever since. My mom was very upset with this, but relationships didn't last, so she eventually let it go until I started dating June. When June and I announced our engagement, my mom didn't freak out, which was weird considering my mom hates June. She was very calm, but I just took it like she was finally accepting this, and so I didn't think much of it. Everything was fine and smooth all the way up until the wedding. I gave both my parents +1s to the wedding since they both remarried after I graduated college. So I'm not close to their spouses, but I gave them the option of inviting them. We had a very small ceremony, just immediate family and a few close friends. After the ceremony, me and June went to take pictures and then met back up with everyone we invited to the reception, which was pretty big. And when we got there, my sister and June's best friend, who was also the maid of honor, ran up to us in a panic. And before they even said anything, I spotted it. My mom was at a table with my dad's wife, and Margot. Now, I wanted to freak out, but June kept me calm. I walked over, pulled them aside, and simply told them they had to leave. My mom tried to explain that Margot and I are soulmates, and June is just in the way of true love, but I wasn't hearing it. I just didn't care. So I got my best friends to escort them out, and I returned to the party where luckily, after a few moments, I was able to relax and enjoy it. I really didn't think this would all turn into something huge, but June and I just got back from our honeymoon where we didn't have our phones, and once I saw mine, I saw hundreds of text messages from multiple family members. They all seriously think that I was the jerk for kicking my mom out of her only son's wedding. For the record, she was there for the ceremony, but apparently was really upset she was kicked from the reception. Now, if I were to summarize some of my family's thoughts on this, some think that I could have just ignored Margot and didn't have to freak out in the way that I did, even though I was relatively calm thanks to June, but a few others, including my dad, think that I should have just kicked Margot out and let my mom stay, but after the stunt my mom pulled, I didn't want her there either. I'm now starting to second guess myself since everyone is really mad. June and my sister are on my side, but I fear my dad may be right, and I should have just let my mom stay and made Margot leave. So am I the one at fault here? What should I do? No, this is crazy. Like seriously, there is nothing good about this. You mean to tell me that your mom brought your ex-girlfriend to your wedding reception and tried to convince you as some last-ditched effort that this lady is actually your soulmate and June is just in the way. And we're talking about someone who was manipulative and controlling and just guilt-tripped you into everything and was just an awful girlfriend overall. Like that's insane and incredibly toxic. And your mom didn't bring her to try and convince you that, oh my god, this is your soulmate. She only did that because she hates June. She wanted one last shot at you, all because she can't control you in the way that she's done before. Like think about it, June's basically like taken a step forward and said, no, you're not going to treat me like garbage. And she's helped you do the same in the face of your awful mother. And if this is the kind of stuff that she's doing at your wedding reception, God only knows the way she's treated you earlier in life. Like this is some crazy behavior and there is no good excuse for that. So yes, she absolutely deserved to get kicked out of your wedding reception. Both your mom and Margot can take a hike because what she did was toxic and very targeted. And in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for shaming my sister after after she got pregnant with someone who is categorically a complete deadbeat. Because right now she's angry with me for telling the truth. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female and I have a twin sister who we will call Ashley, and we've always been very close. And she started dating this guy a year ago who we will call Jared. Jared is 32 years old. I never really liked him, but my sister was head over heels in love with him and said that she wanted to marry him. Well, this summer, I was at a grocery store when a woman with 3 kids came up to me in the aisle and asked if I was Ashley. I said no and was about to say that we're twins when she cut me off and said, "Yes, you are. You're dating my deadbeat baby daddy and want to follow my pages leaving hate comments saying he chose you over us and to move on. How heartless are you?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? I am not Ashley. I'm her twin sister." And then I asked if she was talking about Jared. She then said yes and showed me the screenshots of my sister DMing her saying that Jared is now hers and that he doesn't claim those kids and all this other stuff. Now, I was very uncomfortable, but I knew in my gut that he was a weirdo. I was so shocked that my sister would not only date a deadbeat, but also proudly, even knowing how our father being a deadbeat sent us both to therapy. After this, I just walked away. And a few days later, I asked my sister, and she denied it at first, but then admitted it, saying she didn't tell me that he had kids, since I personally don't date men with kids, and she didn't want me to judge her. But I told her I was judging the fact that he's a deadbeat, not a father of any kind. As a result, we've argued about it a lot, and I've now looked at her very differently ever since. Fast forward to this week, and she invites me over. Then her and Jared tell me that she's pregnant, and that they're both so happy. But I was just sitting there silently and just kept eating. She then asked me why I was acting like a jerk, and why I'm not happy to be an aunt. And I said, well, because of this, and then I gestured over to Jared. He then got mad and said, "What's your problem with me?" And I said, "Well, it's because you're a deadbeat." After I said that, they both got quiet. He then said to me, "That doesn't mean that I'll be one for this kid." And at that point, I just laughed and got up to leave. I'm then in the hallway on the way to the elevator when my sister comes running up behind me and keeps asking why I'm being so rude while she's also sobbing. So I told her the truth. I said that she should be ashamed to be pregnant by a guy that abandoned his other kids, knowing that this is what happened to us, and that she's disgusting and a loser, and he's gonna leave her like he did his ex. She then said that I don't know the full story, and she can't believe that I would not be supportive in this time of her life, and that the baby has half my DNA too. Now, I felt bad and said I would try to be there for her, but she will realize what a mistake she made, and then I walked away. She's now texting me saying that she wants me to come back and apologize to Jared, and I just straight up refused. Well, as a result, she said that she doesn't want to speak to me if I don't apologize to them. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk here. I think your sister needed some tough love, and the fact that she's completely missing the point of all of this, in my opinion, shows that she might be a little too far down the river for you to help her. Because I think the original poster is 100% correct. Jared is absolutely going to leave the sister in this story, and that is such a shame because there's evidence of it happening already. And it's so funny because this guy even admits to being a deadbeat, and he says, "Oh, I'm not going to do that with these kids," basically implying him saying, "Yeah, you're right." So no, you're not the jerk for telling the truth, because honestly, your sister is about to have her heart broken. Am I the jerk for telling off my parents after they prioritized my sister once again over anything I might do with my life? Because right now I'm very frustrated, and I seriously cannot wait to move out in 2 years. Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old male, and my parents have me and my sister. When we were younger, things were okay, but then when she was 7 years old, she got bullied by a kid in her class. The bullying didn't last long, but afterwards she changed. She struggled with her self-esteem, and she still feels bad about herself and hates herself, and it made our parents go into protective mode. They let her choose where to go for takeout for a month afterwards, and they canceled what we had talked about for my birthday party, and instead decided that we all needed a family vacation instead. But she got to pick the location even though we went for my birthday, and I just didn't have any fun. My parents knew that I wouldn't like it. They told me that she needed this, and we needed to help pick her up. They told me I could spend time with friends another day and do something small with them. Well, that never happened even though I asked them. She was still in a bad place after a few months, and then my dad went no contact with his mom because she decided she was going to leave all of her grandkids something, but my sister, the only granddaughter, was not included, and she said some nasty stuff about boys being more special to her. And by the way, all of this was in front of my sister, which, let's be honest, is a really messed up thing to do to my sister, but it made my parents really go crazy, and they basically put my sister first in everything. It was more of the same where she got to make decisions for all of us, and I didn't get the chance to do it ever. And the few times I would make plans with friends, my sister just wanted me around, and my parents would ask me to put her first and cancel my plans. Now, a couple of times I said no, but my parents made me cancel anyways. And it just keeps getting worse too, and it still happens. A few months ago, I told them that stuff was pushing me away because I felt less important and less cared for by them. I also told them that I felt like my sister got to make too many decisions for me. I told them I was so ready to just move away and get away from them. And sure, that really hurt, but it all feels like this is my sister's family instead of mine. They said they were sorry, and they told me that they would do better. They would get my sister a better therapist to help her so we could all just move on. Well, fast forward, and I had plans to go to a Halloween party with friends next week. And my sister also had plans with friends, but after a panic attack, they canceled on her and mocked her about the panic attack. She asked our parents if we could go away that same weekend and spend some time as a family. So my parents asked me to cancel my plans and go. And they tried to apologize, but I just said forget it. I told them to forget making it up to me because I don't believe them and I'm just completely done. I'll do what they want and I'll just suck it up for 2 more years and then I'm gonna walk away because I'm so done. At that point, I would not hear my parents out and they got increasingly frustrated with me. So am I the jerk in this situation for all the things that went down? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. Your parents are clearly showing favoritism towards your sister and it's negatively affecting your life. Like, why on earth should you have to stay home all because your sister is having a panic attack? Like, if they want to take care of her and help her out during these moments, then sure, that's fine. But for you to cancel all your plans all the time to stay home with your family and be there for your sister seems really overboard and like so uncalled for, because this is just super intrusive. She's already dictating everything in the house. Now she's basically deciding when you can come and go from your own home that you live in. So truly, I don't blame you for the way that you feel, because your parents are absolutely enabling this behavior, and this is not fair in the slightest. My entitled manager made an all-encompassing policy that literally hindered just about everything we were trying to do at our office. So I decided to maliciously comply, showing to him once and for all exactly why this policy's stupid, and eventually getting things changed back to the way that they were. Here's what happened. So I work in a small office, and just like a lot of companies, we've got that one manager who's obsessed with cutting the cost. Ours is someone that we will call Mark. Now, Mark wasn't a bad guy, but he had this laser focus on reducing expenses, no matter how small it might be, and one of his biggest obsessions was paper. He was convinced that we were blowing our budget on printing, so he implemented a new policy. Everything had to be double-sided. And this wasn't a suggestion, it was a hard rule. Mark sent an email to everyone in the office, even tagging the human resources department, to literally make this official. He said the following: "From this point forward, all printing must be double-sided. No exceptions. If we catch unnecessary single-sided printing, there will be consequences." Now, most of us didn't see it as a big deal for internal documents, but there were times that it was a problem. We regularly worked with contracts and legal forms, as well as client documents, things that, for whatever reason, often had to be single-sided. A few of us raised concerns about this with Mark, but his response was always the same: "Rules are rules. Double-sided saves us money. Stick to the policy." So this is where we decided to maliciously comply. A couple weeks later, we got a massive contract from one of our biggest clients. Let's call him Green Tech. The deal was huge, easily one of the biggest projects we've handled all year, and it came with a lot of paperwork. The instructions from Green Tech were crystal clear. The contract had to be printed single-sided to meet their legal department standards. Now, I figured this might be one of those rare cases where Mark would have made an exception, so I went to him and I explained the situation, and I showed him the client's instructions. But Mark just shrugged his shoulders. He said to me, "Company policy is company policy. We're not wasting paper. You're gonna make it double-sided." Well, at this point, I knew where this was headed, but whatever, that's totally fine. I followed the rules. I printed the entire 80-page contract double-sided, and then I sent it off to the client. A couple of days later, we get an email from Green Tech, and they were not pleased. In fact, they were asking us to reprint the whole thing, single-sided this time, or they would reconsider doing business with us. When I showed the email to Mark, his face turned red. He had no choice but to backtrack and scramble to fix the mess. We ended up having to reprint the entire contract correctly and overnight ship it to Green Tech, which ended up costing us more in fees than the printing savings that Mark had been so focused on. But the best part about this was that after that fiasco, Mark quietly rolled back the no exceptions rule for double-sided printing, and we were allowed to use our judgment on a case-by-case basis. And it's funny how just a little bit of malicious compliance with bad policies can show someone exactly why they don't work in a practice. Yeah, I can't stand managers who are like, "Oh, this is a no exceptions or a zero tolerance policy," because that kind of language very rarely translates into anything like doable. If anything, it just restricts everybody around you from doing anything in the company, and then moments like this come up and you're just like, "Wait a second, I thought you said no exception." And then suddenly there's an exception and it's like, wait wait a second, I could have made this decision for us. So I love the fact that the original poster was like, okay, let's get petty. I'm gonna maliciously comply and make you realize why this policy is really stupid. And seriously, sometimes that's exactly what it takes. So good for you for sticking it to him and showing him exactly why this is really dumb. Because Mark in this story was going completely overboard. Am I the jerk for not letting my inheritance be used on my step and half siblings? All because I'm not going to college, and according to my mom, it would be put to better use with them instead of me. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 17-year-old male, and I won't be going to college after high school, because instead, I'm going to be learning a trade. I feel like it works better for my skills, and generally would be a better job for me. My mom isn't super happy about it, but she knows college has been pushed on me for almost 2 years, and my mind has not changed. So she has accepted that she won't change my mind, and nobody will. But here's why my post is here in the first place. My dad passed away when I was 6 years old. When he was 9, his mom passed away, and it was all due to medical negligence and malpractice. And my grandfather, uncle, and dad were awarded compensation, and it was a huge amount after her death. My grandfather split it between my dad and my uncle. He was working and received Social Security benefits for them because grandma passed away, and he knew that she'd want them to be taken care of above everything else. When my dad realized that he was sick, he made sure that money would go to me, his only kid. He set it up in a trust fund and left my grandfather and my uncle in charge of it. The money is a lot. Like, I could easily be debt-free going to college with it, and then have some left over if I was smart about it. My mom also knew about the money but couldn't access it. Now, my mom has been married to her husband for 9 years, and my parents were separated when my dad passed away. Her husband has a son who's a year younger than me, and he has a medical condition. My mom also has 2 kids with her husband. Because of my stepbrother's medical condition and his mom not being in his life or his mom's family, they don't really have any savings for his college anymore, and that's because they had to spend it on some medical stuff. And my half-siblings have absolutely nothing either. Well, my mom and her husband think that since I have the money and that I won't be using it for college, I should just give it to my stepbrother and my half-siblings, and then let them pay it back if I insist. But they say that I could just give it to them as a way to help them with their futures, and this way I would be a good brother. But you know what? I said no, and I told them that I wouldn't change my mind. My mom asked why, and I said that it's my inheritance from my dad. I could buy a house with it, or even protect my future with it. I could save it for my future kids, but I don't want to risk it not being paid back when it was my dad's way of securing my future. Well, she told me that he would want me to do this, and I asked her if she really thinks that he would want the money he got from losing his mom to be used on random kids that aren't me. She then told me that they're not random to me, so yes, she believes that he would want me to be a good brother, and she told me I should really give it more consideration. So am I at fault here for saying no? What should I do? No, you're not at fault. This is insane. Your mom is only asking for your money because she doesn't have any to give to her kids. And sure, that really sucks, but guess what? That's why student loans are created. Like, if they seriously want to go to college, then they can take out loans and go that way. Why should you have to finance their college career? It's not like you're not going to use that money. You're going to buy a house, you're going to spend it on stuff that you need. So for them to be like, oh, just use it on them, give it to them, be a good brother, this is what your dead dad would want you to do. Like, all that's just manipulation because they just don't want to pay for it. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and the fact that your mom would pull that kind of move, in my opinion, is super toxic. Am I the jerk for not getting rid of my cats just to accommodate my pregnant best friend who's living with me at the moment? Here's what happened. I'm a 22-year-old female, and I have lived alone since the beginning of this year in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. I have 1 cat who is my pet, but I also volunteer with a local cat rescue organization. It's fairly often that I temporarily foster cats or kittens, anywhere from just 1 night to up to 2 weeks at most, and this is until we can clear them to be placed in our shelter, or with another foster family, or they can be adopted. Usually I take in 1 foster at a time, but at times it's 2 of them if they are siblings and they are bonded. Recently, this summer, my best friend, who we will call Christy, moved in with me because she was on very bad terms with her mom and stepdad, who she was previously living with, and it was safer for her to move out. Now, I of course offered her to stay with me, and she's been in the spare bedroom ever since. However, last month, Christy found out that she's pregnant from her boyfriend. They have a plan to get their own place as soon as possible, she says, but I truly don't mind if she stays here as long as she needs. Now, given that she's pregnant, when she told her mom last week, her mom wanted to come over and talk things over. So she came here on Tuesday, and they privately talked for about 2 hours. When they came out, it seemed like it was a good chat, and they were more relaxed overall, but her mom kind of turned her attention towards me and said, if Christy's going to be living here, you need to do something about the cats. And I asked what she meant, and she mentioned toxoplasmosis, the litter boxes, the number of cats here, etc. And then she started getting an attitude towards me when she said, "You guys should have thought of this already." I then let her know that we did actually, and there's an extremely low to no risk of toxoplasmosis. I only have one cat, which is my own, in the main house, who doesn't even go into Christy's room. Christy also has zero obligations or responsibilities for my cats, and this is something I let her know about the minute that she moved in. All the litter boxes are cleaned minimum twice daily, and they aren't even anywhere near Christy. My cat's litter box is kept in the garage, where there is a cat door that she can go in and out of, and any foster cats that I have are kept in my master bedroom. It's a large bathroom, and it's adapted to be safe for a temporary foster. The only interaction Christy has is if she happens to be in the living room or in the hallway or kitchen with my cat at the same time, so contact is extremely limited. I also want to add that all cats I foster are up to date on their vaccines, they're spayed or neutered, and they're exclusively indoor cats only. After explaining all of this to Christy's mom, I told her that at most I would be willing to possibly limit the fosters I bring in, but I will absolutely not be getting rid of my cat. She then told me, "Well, yours is the biggest risk here." She also tried to suggest that I should stop volunteering with cats altogether up until Christy can move out or until the baby is born. Christy tried interrupting her mom to calm her down because she kept going on about how I'm being selfish, how I'm not realizing that she's carrying another life right now, and that apparently I'm not even considering the risks that are associated with it. But given their relationship, she was very on edge with her mom, which I totally understand. Now, I love my best friend, but I will not be getting rid of my pet in my own home that was here before she was. I'm willing to adapt and limit fosters, but I genuinely do not think that I'm risking anyone's health here, and I don't want to stop volunteering. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. Christy's mom is being super irrational, and she's not being fair in the slightest. Like seriously, you know these cats better than anybody else, and you know that she's not going to be anywhere near those cats in the first place. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because this is absolutely avoidable. My entitled mom expects me to buy a house that's closer to her, all because she doesn't want to drive 20 minutes to see me and her grandchild. Here's what happened. So when me and my fiance met, we hit it off very fast because we were very much on the same wavelength. And by chance, we lived close to one another, so we could easily spend lots of time together. So after just 6 months, I was ready to move into her apartment with my dog. But sadly, the landlord said no because of said dog. This turned out to be a blessing in disguise because we realized that buying a condo would cost almost as much as buying a house, especially considering the current market in Canada. So we ended up looking for a house. My first instinct was to search around where I grew up, which is where my mom is, because there's lots of parks around, which made my childhood pretty awesome with my friends. Very rapidly though, it became evident that our budget of $575,000 maximum, with renovations included, would not allow it. I tried literally 100 times to explain to her that borrowing $25,000 from her would make a difference in our options, but she shot me down every time and laughed at me when I insinuated that we wouldn't be able to buy in her neighborhood. I never asked her for a gift. I always said that I would pay her back, but the intent behind the loan was to keep us more easily above water for the first few years. So anyways, I ended up finding a home last year within our budget, and shockingly, it was on the island of Montreal, which is where I work, which is something that the both of us thought we would never be able to find. The house is fairly old but spacious, with a backyard and with enough rooms to have 2 kids. But when my mom learned about this, she freaked out. I would describe for the first time in my life her attitude to be purely toxic. She hated that house and essentially said it was a mistake and proceeded to insult everything about it, and basically by proxy I guess, called me a dumb idiot for buying it in every conceivable way without directly saying it. She wanted me to be 5 minutes away, but now I'm 20 minutes away, making that at least a 45-minute drive during rush hours. Now in over a year, she has only stayed for dinner once. Each time I invite her, I get a no with an excuse as to why she can't make it. She often calls me on the weekend for me to come over to her place with the baby, but when I boomerang the invite back to her by saying something like, "Hey, it's been a while, how about you come over to my place?" I'm usually told, "Oh, I'll see if I can do that. I have gardening to do and all this other stuff in the backyard." And wouldn't you guess it, it usually ends up with her not coming at all. Fast forward, and we had brunch last weekend, and I heard her complain that she doesn't see her granddaughter enough. So I pointed out to her that we said she's literally welcome to drop in at any time, not just on the weekends. But she said that she obviously couldn't come on weekdays because she works. Now, my mom is 68 years old. She has worked 45 years at the same hospital as a secretary. She's the oldest worker there and has her pension fully paid off with lots of days off. And she has a boss that loves her. So that basically means she can take an afternoon or a day off to spend time here anytime that she wants to. So I pointed that out, and she said she's not that kind of person to leave her coworkers in in the dirt, all by taking days off, which is super ironic for her to say because she literally just came back from a 2-week vacation in Greece. So at this point, I finally snapped back. I said that she'll be able to see her grandchild more often the day that she's not the last priority behind her coworkers, her job, her gardening, a sunny day in her backyard, and a 20-minute drive. And after I said that, she seemed incredibly insulted. Now, fast forward to yesterday, and she sent me a listing for a home 5 minutes away from hers. She said to me, "If you're interested, there's a house for sale that's about $500,000, and you can look at it if you want." But I'm just like, no? Why would we get back into that boat looking for a new house similar to what we already have just 1 year after buying this one? We will buy when we have enough to buy a house with a second floor, and only if we feel the house is too small with 2 kids. She then says to me, "It has 3 rooms on the same floor, 2 bathrooms that are renovated. It's not quite similar since you have more money to invest. But you know what? I just wanted to have a look, so fine, I'll mind my own business. Have a good day." And it's like, are you kidding me? You mean to tell me that she wouldn't loan me $25,000, but instead expects me to spend $500,000 on her so that she doesn't have to drive to see her grandchildren? My father and my fiance's family all live further away from her, but they all come around way more often. So honestly, I'm so annoyed by my mom, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Yeah, this all comes down to the fact that your mom is being super lazy, and she didn't get her way when you guys were buying your house. And also, by the way, you guys have a house in Montreal. That's a massive city, and that is not an easy place to find a house. So the fact that you even found one is incredible. So truly, I think the way you're handling this is completely fine, because your mom is being super selfish, and you and your family do not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by stealing more caramel sauce cans from a restaurant than any one person could consume in a dozen lifetimes, resulting in me trying to find some way to destroy the evidence, as I had literally committed a felony in the process. Here's what happened. So when I was a teenager, I used to live not far from a McDonald's. I was on the high school swim team, and practices were held at the horrible hour of 5 o'clock in the morning. My parents were less enthusiastic about dropping me off that early, so I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning just to ride my bike there. Cutting through a gap in the fence of the McDonald's store parking lot saved me a couple of blocks, so I would force my bike through the hedge and go on my sad, lonely way. There were several days where I would see huge stacks of buns and other stuff outside the store side entrance. I don't know if there was some kind of drop-off from the trucks or daily delivery or whatever, but I suppose that the delivery was only for the non-perishables. There must have been some other arrangement for the meat, eggs, produce, and all the other stuff. Now, the timing was odd, but maybe the truck had an early route, and that was the first store. I mean, it's hard to say, but for reasons that will become pretty obvious, I never asked about it. One day, I noticed the stack of supply pallets that had a bunch of number 10 cans on them. When I got closer, I saw the label identifying them as the gooey caramel sauce that McDonald's used for their sundaes. And I used to love that stuff. It was awesome. Now, it being about 4 o'clock in the morning, my brain wasn't working all that well. So I decided I would take one of them with me to school, and me and my teammates would eat it with a spoon, which would be like the best day ever. But right then, I had a thought. What if we eat all of the syrup? That would leave none for me when I had ice cream at home. I mean, who was I to deny my family their share of tasty caramel sundaes? So this was my solution. Zip on home and get something more cargo capable than a tricked out Schwinn with a banana seat and chopper handlebars. In all of 5 minutes, our family's Dodge Dart was loaded with 10 cans of caramel syrup. So I drove it home, made as little noise as I could unloading and hiding the cans, and then I booked it back to school on my bike. Now, stealing what was probably a couple of months worth of sundae topping for a single McDonald's is probably enough to qualify as a mess up, but I found that this form expects consequences, even if they are not all that consequential. Well, in this case, there were several. The first thing that I realized after successfully pulling off the one and only heist of my abbreviated criminal career was that you really couldn't open one of these cans without somewhere to put all the stuff inside of it. I could maybe consume a couple of spoonfuls of caramel syrup at a time, but any more than that and it started tasting awful. Deliciously awful, but still awful. So that left the problem of what to do with the rest of the syrup. So on the first day, I decided to enjoy the fruits of my juvenile delinquency. I ended up attempting to pour the majority of the can of McDonald's caramel syrup all down my family's bathroom sink. Now, as a fun fact, caramel syrup does not go gently into that good night. It clogged up the sink almost immediately, leaving me in the one bathroom in our tiny single-family abode with a mostly full 10 cans of thick vanilla-flavored goodness, a sink filled up about a third of the way with the rest of it, and a growing line of siblings pounding on the door clamoring clamoring to get in so they can use the bathroom. Running hot water into the sink only helped a tiny bit. It diluted the syrup in the sink, but did nothing to unclog what must have been the world's largest Heath bar lodged in the pee trap under the vanity. I mean, even the plunger had no effect. In desperation, I used my cupped hands to transfer as much syrup and brownish sweet water from the sink over to the toilet, flushing as often as the tank would fill up. With the sink mostly emptied, I then attempted to clean up. But here's the thing, we kept cleaning supplies in the linen closet outside of the bathroom, so all I had to work with were towels and toilet paper. And I didn't dare try to use any of the towels because my mom would destroy me. So I tried using the toilet paper, which is when I learned that caramel syrup sticks to countertops, toilet seats, walls, floors, etc. much harder than it sticks to toilet paper. All I really managed to do was add a layer of Charmin to the mess on every surface between sink and toilet. Finally, faced with a pair of angry siblings, I opened the door. My older brother took one look at the place and said, "Oh my god, what were you doing in here? Did you take a number 2 in the sink?" Which, to be fair, was a reasonable first impression for someone seeing brown stains all over the sink, countertop, and toilet seat. But this all leads to my real mess up of the day. I just went along with it. Somehow, it made more sense at the time to confess to blowing out the sink's pipes by going to the bathroom than to admit that I had stolen a giant can of McDonald's caramel syrup. So clearly, value judgments were not my forte at the time. I don't remember what lame excuse I made. I might have just said something like, "Yeah, the toilet was clogged, so I didn't have a choice." It was probably something like that. And then I grabbed some Formula 409 out of the linen closet and started spraying it everywhere, despite my brother's increasing agitation to needing to go to the bathroom. Now, because they were never the brightest bulbs in the shed, they both accepted my lame explanation, satisfied perhaps with an admission of guilt and the potential of giving me a hard time about crapping in the sink, which they did for many decades and often with great enthusiasm. So from that point on, I became that weird cousin who craps in the sink. They would say something like, "Oh, don't let him use the bathroom, he'll crap all over your sink." And they would say that any time we visited our aunts and uncles. And of course, I would be helpless to defend myself. If I were to say, well, it was actually just a bunch of caramel syrup, that would have demanded way too much awkward explanation. And finally, there's a third, less impactful consequence. When I bragged about my heist to my closest fellow teenage colleagues, one of them made the astute observation that those cans were probably super expensive. I forget the math, but we concluded that I had committed the equivalent of Grand Theft Auto in McDonald's caramel syrup. So instead of getting to enjoy the fruits of my labor, we ended up opening just one more can, each spooning out enough to make us physically ill, and then dumping out the rest of it in the woods. So somewhere there's a dynasty of ants worshipping the divine provider that poured the manna from heaven that fed their colony for untold generations. Oh, and to add one more thing, after the wake-up call of realizing that I had definitely committed a felony, I decided that cutting through the McDonald's parking lot wasn't a good idea anymore, nor was being noticed as the one guy riding a bike at 4:30 in the morning every single day. The ace detective they assigned to solve the great syrup caper of 1978 would surely put 2 and 2 together, and all it would take is one blood sugar reading to prove my guilt. So I ended up quitting the swim team, which really wasn't all that big of a deal since I was an awful swimmer and I actually hated getting up that early anyways. Okay, this story is really funny to me. First of all, this guy got so lucky getting away with this. I can only imagine the employee's face once they realized that some of their stock that they ordered was not there. Like, there's a small likelihood that somebody got fired because of this, like, no lie. But also, trying to pour all of that down the drain to get rid of it, only for your siblings to think that you crapped in the sink, like, that is hilarious to me. So I personally think this story is hilarious, especially because the original poster ended up getting away with it. Am I the jerk for not allowing my ex and her new partner to move into my apartment, even though she gave me permission to break my lease 2 months early? Here's what happened. Okay, so my ex and I just went through a nasty breakup. We were together 11 years, and I found out that she was cheating on me with a guy from high school who lived out of state. She said that she was moving out, but I noticed that she had not packed anything and did not seem concerned about living arrangements. And at this point, I had a gut feeling that there was more to this story. So I resigned myself to the idea that I'd have to live with my ex for the last 2 months of my lease. We had 2 bedrooms and she moved into the other one, and she seemed agitated that I had not left. Finally, she started an enormous fight that got so bad, I had to leave and stay with a relative for the weekend. While I was gone, my apartment reached out to me. They said she was willing to let me out of my lease as she had a new roommate who could take over my spot on the lease, and she did this the day I paid rent. Now, I almost did it because I was so exhausted at that point, but then I said no. That person she was moving in was the person she cheated on me with. I paid for all the furniture in there, and I paid the bulk of the bills. If she wanted a new start with this person, they needed to pay for it themselves and not do it off of my back. I knew if I didn't sign that, the new guy would not be allowed to park at the complex. They are very strict and they would tow his car. It's also in my lease that nobody can move in without my permission. Now, purely out of spite, I was willing to pay the next 2 months of rent to not give them that. And eventually it worked. Their plans were ruined and they had to leave. I know I had somewhere safe to stay, but I was so done being used and manipulated. So am I the jerk for not letting my ex and her new partner move into my apartment? Because right now, I'm really not sure if I did the right thing. No, you're definitely not the jerk. Your ex literally tried to piss you off to get you to move out. That's the only reason she started that fight, and the fact that she even tried that in the first place is crazy to me. Like, did she really think that you would just move out and not take your stuff with you? Like, this lady is not that bright at all. Because you know what? If I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Because you know for a fact she's only doing this as manipulation, and conveniently so right after you pay rent. Like, that is so toxic and obvious that she's trying to pull off some kind of fast one on you. And if I realized that in the way that you did, I would have done the same thing purely out of spite. So I would not feel bad about this in the slightest, because the way your ex was acting was completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for telling off my parents after I told them that they spent my childhood focusing on my brother instead of me? Here's what happened. I'm a 17-year-old male, and my younger brother, who's 15 years old, has had a number of serious disabilities from birth. He suffered brain damage at birth, has a missing kidney, has digestive issues which forces him to eat through a feeding tube. He cannot walk and can only make sounds instead of talking, meaning that my parents' time and attention has been focused on him more than me. For the first few years after I was born, I spent a lot of time with my grandpa, who raised me from the age of 2 until I was about 7, and then I was seen as old enough to be at home after school and could make my own food and clean up after myself and not need supervision mostly. Now, my grandfather was willing and had offered to keep taking me after school, but my parents said that he didn't need to do it and he deserved to live his life. I never get one-on-one time with my parents. They couldn't afford field trips and never took the time to apply for the school field trip fund, so my grandfather picked up the slack there. He paid into my school lunch account so I didn't have to make my own lunch. My grandpa was the person who'd pick me up from school if I was sick. He would even stay and take care of me at home, since whichever parent would be home would really just say to go to bed or to lay on the couch and relax, and there was no caring for me or taking care of me when I was sick. When I was 11 years old, I got picked for this junior programmers contest through our school district, but my parents said they couldn't take the time for it, so they refused to sign off, and since my grandpa couldn't do it, even though he offered to take me, I missed out on that as well. When my laptop broke in October of 2020, it was my grandfather who replaced it for me so I could, go to school when school wasn't in person. When I got older, I was asked to do more, like cook for everyone, pick up medications, or get the special bath ready for my brother. And a few times, my mom and dad even reprimanded me for not doing it off of my own initiative. My parents have nothing set aside for me to go to college. They have never even considered colleges. And last year, I had my guidance counselor on my case wanting me to go to college and wanting us to attend some kind of college talk, and my parents just wouldn't go. I told her that I didn't have money for college, and she said that she would reach out to my parents about the forms, but they never got back to her. She called, she emailed, and she reached out repeatedly, but still there was nothing. Then I told her that I decided to skip college, and she was like, no, you need to go. And she tried reaching out to them again to talk about it, but they just wouldn't answer or even respond. My parents wanted to get a night off and catch up with some friends in town, and they asked me to babysit, and I said no. My parents then told me that I should help my family considering all that they do for me. So I asked them, what have they ever done for me? I told them it had to be for me and not for my brother. I asked them to name one thing, and then I pointed out all the stuff that they don't do and just haven't done for me. They then called me spiteful and told me to stop looking at it through the lens of a kid. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation for the way I responded to my parents? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. No, I do not think you're the jerk at all for getting frustrated. For starters, this really is like a tricky situation because your brother definitely needs a lot of attention. His circumstance is very unique and truly, it just really is not that easy for anybody to deal with. But that also doesn't excuse the way your parents have been acting. So no, you're definitely not the jerk because you absolutely deserve attention from your parents. Am I the jerk for changing my unborn son's first name? All because my sister is trying to name her unborn child the exact same name. Because right now, my sister and my mother are mad that I'm changing my kid's first name, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I chose a name for our son early in my pregnancy. Now, we didn't tell anyone the name, but my sister snuck into the nursery to peek at what we had done cousin and saw the name on the wall. She's also pregnant and said that she wanted inspiration for her baby nursery, and then she decided that because the cousins were being born so close together, they should share the same first name. And she told me it would be so cool to continue the tradition of multiple family members with the same name. But here's the thing, my sister never shared a name with a cousin. She had a family name where she was the only living person with it in the family. On the other hand, I did share a name with 3 cousins and an uncle, and I absolutely hated it. I chose to use my middle name, mostly because it was unique in terms of the family, and it wasn't super unique in general, but just enough. But nobody else in my family had my middle name, so I would use that more than my first name, even though some of my family members refused to call me anything else. My husband was disappointed just like I was when he learned that my sister had decided to use the name, and we started talking about changing the name. We decided to scrap the one we had originally chosen, and we covered over it in the nursery. Well, my sister and mom saw the finished nursery a couple of days ago, and my sister asked about the name, and she told me she was hurt that we were changing it. She said she had been so excited for the cousins to share a name, but I told her I wanted my son to not share a name with anyone else in the family. My mom said she thought it was amazing to have a few people with the same name in the family, and that it was a special connection between them, but I told them I disagreed. They then said I was overreacting, and that it would be mean to change my son's name after my sister was so excited for our boys to have the same first name. My husband has said that my family has issues with boundaries and accepting a difference of opinions. And you know what? I'm coming to realize that yeah, it even shows with some of them refusing to accept my name, and the fact that my sister snooped on the nursery in the first place and then chose the name without asking if I'd be okay with it. I now keep getting text messages from my sister saying that I should not change the name. So are we in the wrong for doing this? Because right now we're still incredibly frustrated. No, there's no way you're the jerk in this situation. Your sister is being so weird right now. First of all, don't tell anybody the name of your son until your sister has her kid. Like, I would wait on that for a while and be like, nope, we're gonna wait. We don't want this happening again. And that would not be an overreaction because this has happened once already. So I would keep a lid on that until we know exactly what's going on. But it's also crazy to me that your sister's like, you need to change it back to what I want it to be. I want our kids to share a first name so they feel connected. And it's like, wait a second, we can feel connected without having the same first name. Like, that's so dumb. And the original poster knows what this is like. They had to share their first name with literally 4 other people, it sounds like. That is so annoying. I would hate that if I was in your shoes. Any sense of individuality or some kind of like uniqueness just goes right out the window. So no, you are not the jerk for changing your unborn son's first name, because the way your sister is acting, in my opinion, is incredibly weird. My entitled friend confesses her love for me, stating that she wants to be my girlfriend, even though she friend-zoned me and ghosted me for over 2 months. But after I showed my girlfriend and blocked this lady out of my life, she ends up showing up at my house to chew me out, furious that I've chosen my current girlfriend over her. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old male, and about 3 years ago, I had feelings for this girl who we will call Megan. She was 22, she was nerdy, she was into anime, and played a lot of video games. It was those traits that made me interested in her, since I was also an anime lover and a gamer. Over time, that interest turned into genuine attraction. At first, I was hesitant about asking her out because I wasn't sure if she felt the same way, but after some encouragement from my friends, I made my move. So we met up at a local diner for lunch, and the diner was one of those mom and pop places, and the food was really good. As we were eating, I finally decided to tell her how I felt. Again, I was hesitant about doing so, but went through with it anyways. And you know what? She seemed receptive at first. She asked me what it was about her that made me interested in her. So I listed off a few things. Her interest in anime, her taste in video games, her dark sense of humor, things like that. I didn't want to ask her to be my girlfriend right then and there, so instead I asked if she would be up for getting to know each other more, and maybe going on an actual date or two to see where things go from there. She then goes on to apologize and say that she does like me, but only as a friend. She said that she didn't want to ruin our friendship, and that she didn't want there to be any bad feelings if we did get together but ended up breaking up. And honestly, hearing that hurt a bit. Part of me wanted to at least try to convince her to change her mind, but the only words that came out of my mouth were to say, okay, I'm fine with that. We chatted for a little while longer before we left the diner and went our separate ways. Now, I tried to reach out a few times after that day just to see how she was doing, but I was either left on read or met with one-word replies. So after a while, I just stopped reaching out. Fast forward about 2 months and I finally met someone new. We'll call her Sophie. Sophie was into art and photography. In her own words, she told stories with her art. Whatever piqued her interest wound up as a painting or a sculpture, or even as a framed photo. She was really good at it, and after a while, those same feelings from months before started to come back. But but what I didn't expect was for her to feel the same way. So I asked her to go on a date with me and she said yes. Date nights became a regular thing until eventually we made things official. After our 7th date, I asked if she would like to be my girlfriend and she said yes. The next day when I told my friends about it, they were all stoked. And that's because they were the ones that pushed me to move on and not let my rejection from months ago bother me. A week later, I'm sitting in my room reading a book when I get a messenger notification. I look up and I see that it's from Megan. I thought that this was kind of weird, considering the fact that she hadn't spoken to me in months. But out of curiosity, I opened the message, and her message was basically a short paragraph talking about how after having some time to think, she decided that she actually did want to be my girlfriend. Her message said that she always had feelings for me and that she was ready to give us a chance. So now things started to look even more weird. I mean, really, after all this time, all the one-word replies and unread messages, now she has feelings for me? I decided to take a screenshot of her message and I sent it to Sophie. And after that, I blocked Megan and I thought that would be the end of it. Well, about 2 days later, Megan shows up at my house and was extremely upset. As I open the door, she starts ripping me a new one, telling me how horrible I am for blocking her after she confessed her feelings for me. I told her that she has no right to be upset about anything, especially considering the fact that she was the one who rejected me and said that we would never be a thing. She then tries to guilt trip me, asking me if her feelings for me meant anything. I then said, well, where were those feelings when I was single? I told her that she doesn't get to switch it up now that she sees me with someone else, and then get upset at me for not going along with it. I told her to have a nice day, and then I shut the door. Well, at this point, our friend group is divided on this, and I'm starting to question if I did the right thing or not. I was just a bit upset, and it felt like she expected me to just ditch my girlfriend for her just because she changed her mind. So truly, am I at fault in this situation? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk, and you didn't do anything wrong. If anything, I think you seriously dodged a train. Like, this lady sounds insane. For starters, she straight up just ghosted you, and then when she sees that you have a new girlfriend, she's like, you know what, I changed my mind. I now want to be your girlfriend. Let's get together. And it's like, no, that doesn't work that way. You literally missed the boat. I'm sorry, but this is not okay. And the fact that she came to your house and was like, oh my god, I can't believe you blocked me, when it's like she absolutely knows that you already have a girlfriend, like that is so toxic it's not even funny. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because the way this lady acted, in my opinion, is truly insane. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that I'm not swapping rooms with her simply because she will be moving out soon and I simply don't want to go through the effort? Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old male and I was in the car with my mom today and she asked me if my sister had said anything to me about switching rooms. Well, I said no one did, and then I asked what she meant. She said that apparently my sister wanted to switch rooms with me soon because my room has a smaller room beside it and she wanted to use that room for her daughter and then my room for her. My sister, for reference, is 26 years old and still lives at home with me and her parents, and she also has a 2-year-old daughter. Now, what makes this even more frustrating is that whenever she was pregnant, we did actually swap rooms because my room was downstairs, so it was more convenient for her, and I agreed to swap with her just to help her out. So she got what she wanted, and now she's asking me to swap her again, and this is all because she's never satisfied with what she has. But here's the thing, I am 100% not swapping with her because she is 26 years old, and she was meant to be saving for the past year to move out, so there's like 0 point in us swapping rooms because she's just gonna move out soon anyways. And I'm also planning on getting my room painted as well. When my mom told me about this, I hadn't heard anything about it, but whenever we got home, my sister asked me how I would feel about switching rooms. So obviously in that moment I said no, stating straight up that I would not be switching rooms with her. And when I said that, she actually seemed surprised for some reason, which I simply can't understand because I'm not sure why she thought I would be on board with it. She then asked me why, so I told her that I thought she was moving out soon, and she acted all offended and was like, oh, so you want to get rid of us, and basically acted as if I heavily insulted her or something like that. She was also yapping about how she wants her daughter to have a room beside her, as if they would make me feel bad enough to agree with her. But I was just straight up with her, and I told her it wasn't happening, and she had the audacity to call me selfish and was just super pissed off at me for some reason. So am I the jerk for not wanting to swap my rooms with my sister again? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. If your sister was like a teenager or something like that, where she's coming at you and being like, I want to switch rooms again, then I would kind of understand where this entitled weird attitude's coming from, but it's the fact that she's 26 years old that's kind of like throwing me for a loop. And trust me, I get it. Sometimes you gotta gotta live at home and things just don't work out. So I'm not shaming the sister for living at home or anything like that. Like, that's not what's happening. But it does seem odd that she's supposedly planning on moving, but also trying to like set up a good room for her and her daughter. Like, I don't know about you, but that just doesn't sound like someone who's getting ready to move out. Because if anything, this sounds like someone who's getting ready to settle down and stay put. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk, because you've definitely already done this once before, and switching rooms again with her, in my opinion, is just gonna be a pain in the neck. My parents are obsessed with only eating authentic food, even going as far as refusing to eat at a restaurant if they find out the food isn't authentic from the culture it comes from. And after watching this happen my entire life, I'm now at a point where I seriously just don't like going out to eat with them because their attitude is so obnoxious. Here's what happened. Okay, so this situation has been a thing ever since I can remember. We grew up in the Southwest and my parents loved Mexican food. But anytime we were out getting Mexican food, they would eat it while complaining the whole time that it wasn't authentic. And in typical fashion, it was all chain restaurants, so my Mexican food experiences was stuff like Chili's or Baja Fresh or On the Border, and this was a twice-a-month occurrence growing up. They would say stuff like, "I'm craving Mexican food. How about some Baja Fresh? Oh, that sounds great." And then they would proceed to complain for the entire meal about how it's not authentic. In fact, they hated it so much that they would steal 10 to 12 containers of salsa from the salsa bar just to take it home every time as well. And keep in mind, these were white yuppies from Southern California. They were not Hispanic people at all, and my grandparents were super waspy, people like politicians or college professors. The thing is that they never took us for authentic Mexican because they thought that it was beneath them. You have to go to Spanish-speaking neighborhoods, Spanish-speaking restaurants, or Spanish-speaking food trucks just to get the authentic stuff. The response when I asked what authentic Mexican was, and can we go get some this time, they would say, "Well, hopefully you get to have some someday, but we don't go to the places that offer it here." Now, I'm convinced they didn't even know what authentic Mexican was and just associated it with being cooked by an authentic Mexican person in a more rustic-looking kitchen or environment. My dad used to get these giant burritos from a food truck on his lunch break and then brag about how authentic they were when he got home. He would even brag that the cook didn't even speak English. And for some reason, this is a core childhood memory of mine. In fact, I got one with him once as a kid and an adult, and now I realize they were just simple flour tortilla burritos, and they were just served by a Spanish-speaking person out in a food truck. This whole dynamic carried over for decades to us kids being adults. Now, also, sushi is a big thing where I live, so we took them out for sushi. Mom never had it before, and Dad really didn't either. Now, Mom of course complained the entire time, and Dad jumped into complaining as well. The most notable one was when we went for my brother's graduation, because sushi is his favorite, and he wanted to share it with everybody. But my parents then start asking the wait staff if they have avocados in Japan, because they want the authentic sushi. And the answer, by the way, is of course not. So then they start making a fuss about why it's being served that way. I then tell them that there's no salmon in Japan either. But once I say that, they start to complain about the salmon they had been enjoying up until this point. They were enjoying the sushi because it was really good sushi, but the more I told them, the more they just didn't want it. And to be completely honest, I was instigating the situation because my brother and I enjoy watching them squirm over stuff like this at this point in our lives. This then devolves into both of them refusing to eat any of the sushi, all because it wasn't authentic. So I order them chicken teriyaki bowls, and I tell them it's the most authentic thing on the menu. But honestly, I cannot imagine existing in the self-inflicted prison that is their brains. It must be a sad way to experience this world because they can't even enjoy a delicious meal without the both of them being massive jerks. Wow, this is such a weird way to like approach literally anything in your life. You mean to tell me that these people are obsessed with having authentic food of like the culture it's coming from, and yet they still go to Chili's and On the Border and all these other chain restaurants, and it seems like they only go there to be like, wow, this is an authentic Mexican food, while also refusing to go get said Mexican food that's actually authentic from like a food truck or in an area that doesn't speak English. And it's like, people, what do you want? Do you just want to complain, or do you want to venture into the culture of people who actually made it and get it straight from the source? Like, it's such a stupid way of approaching food in general. Well, this isn't authentic, so I'm not gonna eat it. It's like, what are you talking about? Just eat your sushi, it's not that serious. So yeah, your parents are super weird because the way they're approaching food is so annoying and incredibly tedious. My older parents almost fell for a $7,000 scam as some jerk called my father claiming that he was a police officer and that my father had a warrant for his arrest. And even to this day, I'm still so frustrated that my parents almost fell for this. Here's what happened. Okay, so I got a text from my mom saying that dad is talking to a police officer on the phone, and this officer is claiming that he has a warrant for his arrest. Now, this immediately was a red flag for me me, as I've heard these scams online before, so I proceed to ask my mom to get the police officer's name and badge number and what city he's calling from. Once I have this information, I go ahead and contact the city that he's claiming to be from and provide my dad's information and ask if he's got any kind of active warrant. Well, the person at the other end of the line is claiming that they see nothing under his name or birth date for warrants. I then asked about the officer that my dad was supposedly talking to, and then I gave them their badge number, and the receptionist says that nobody by that name works for the city. She then says to me, "Let me guess, they're saying that you missed your court date and you owe them money?" And she said that because it's a very common scam that's been going around. So with this information, I start calling my parents and they don't answer, but I just keep calling them, and eventually my dad answers and he says, "Hey, I'm busy right now. I'll talk to you in a little bit." And then he hangs up on me and doesn't give me a chance to explain that he's talking to a scammer. I immediately text my mom that dad is being scammed. I called the city, there's no warrant, and that officer doesn't exist. And my God, it was crazy frustrating in that moment that he's more than willing to speak to a scammer on the phone, creating a false sense of urgency, rather than his son who's done the research and verified that all of this is not real. Needless to say, I'm terrified for the future if people like my father, who's in his mid-60s, are falling for scams like this. The only reason that my parents actually believed it is that the scammer faked his caller ID to match what Google says the police department number is for our local branch. And doing something like that is obviously the oldest trick in the book, and it's such a shame that my parents nearly fell for it because they were almost out $7,000 as a result. Yeah, that's crazy. You definitely have to be careful with who's calling you. If someone's calling asking for your information or saying stuff like, "Oh, you're being sued," or "Oh my God, you have an arrest warrant," or anything else like that, like seriously, first off, they're not going to call you, and secondly, you definitely have to cross-reference before you give any of your information. So while I'm really glad that the original poster's parents didn't fall for the scam in the end, the fact that they were even taking that seriously in the slightest, in my opinion, is incredibly alarming. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for finally putting my foot down after my mom's refused to allow me to go to a doctor after having a cough for over a month? Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old female, and I started to get what I thought was the cold or the flu around the end of September. I was coughing, sneezing, and my eyes were watering. I mean, truly, the whole works. I didn't think much of it since I normally feel a bit awful when the seasons change, and this was right around the time everyone was getting sick. Well, a week into October, my symptoms were getting worse. I started coughing so much to the point that it would trigger my gag reflex. Then I started to have trouble keeping food down. Since I work in customer service, I had one nightmare of a time talking to people. Every 3 words I would start coughing uncontrollably, and no amount of tea could help. 3 weeks in, and I start to develop a light fever. It's nothing too crazy, but I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Tossing and turning in bed would disrupt the phlegm and mucus in my throat, and I would end up coughing so much I had to spend most of the night hunched over the toilet until all the mucus came up and I felt good enough to go back to bed. Now, at this point, it's been about 4 weeks, and gagging in the bathroom over the toilet is a daily occurrence. I still can't sleep properly. I'm running out of breath and coughing when I'm just walking to my bus stop, or even when I'm going up a few flights of stairs, and I haven't been able to eat anything of substantial food in 2 days. But even still, my mom refuses to take me to see a doctor and is convinced that I just have a cold. We don't have a family doctor, she won't give me my updated health card, and she will not let anyone take me to a doctor or a walk-in clinic. She has ignored me before when it comes to health problems that I've had, such as my esophagus being ripped open from the pure force of me throwing up for 2 weeks. And of course, she completely forgot the fact that the doctor said if we had waited even an hour, which is something she originally wanted to do, they would have had to shove a tube down my throat and I would have had an infection. She has also completely ignored and denied a nurse who was saying that I needed a knee brace when I smacked my knee so hard on a rock during a hike that it shattered the cartilage in my kneecap. She ended up slapping a compression bandage on it and complained when I was still hobbling around 2 weeks later and said that I was overreacting. In fact, one time I had a bit of pillow fluff stuck in my ear and it took her 3 years to take me to get it checked out and to get it finally cleaned out. She waited so long that both my ears developed a really bad skin infection and I had to take a bunch of medication and eardrops just to fix it. Well, tonight I finally put my foot down and I told her directly that if she didn't take me to see a doctor within this week, I'm gonna find a way to take myself there. She then started crying, saying stuff like, "How could you possibly go against my better judgments?" And then asked me how I could possibly believe all of my coworkers, teachers, and peers who were telling me to go see a doctor all over my own mother. I tried to talk over her, saying how I've been sick for almost a month and that even if it is just a cold, it wouldn't hurt to get it checked anyways. I then started coughing a lot and she kept kept telling me to be quiet, and the reason why I'm still sick is because I won't shut my mouth. So am I the jerk for finally standing up for myself? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. No, your mom is an awful parent. Who in their right mind would be like, oh, you're just faking it, and then continue to let their kid, I don't know, have an awful cough, or walk around with a limp, or be like, oh yeah, I literally can't hear out of this ear because there's something in it. Like seriously, it doesn't sound like the original poster's like looking for attention. They just want to be healthy, and their mom is literally denying them that. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, and if I was in your shoes, I would go straight to a doctor's office or some kind of urgent care, because what you're experiencing definitely needs to be looked at by a doctor. I don't know about you, but if I had a cough for like over a month, I'd be like, okay, there's got to be something wrong here. So hopefully this all works out for you, and hopefully you're able to get like a copy of your insurance card, because what your mom's doing right now is really not good, and you deserve way better than that. Am I the jerk for wasting everybody's time in therapy, all because I was accused of lying by my scumbag mother? Because right now I'm still very frustrated, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old female, and my mom, her husband, and I are in a group therapy with each other. We started therapy a few weeks after Father's Day because that was the final straw for them to insist we all needed therapy to work on why I won't let us be the family that they want. We started at the end of July, and by the end of August, my mom accused me of lying, called me a liar, and laid out this really big sob story about how much it hurt to have me lie to her and do everything in my power to destroy her marriage. And this really pissed me off, and I didn't lie at any point of this. I said as much in the follow-up session, and the therapist asked me to outline my side and how I felt having mom call me a liar. My mom kept trying to interrupt me, and she told the therapist to shut up, and she accused me of being a vicious liar. Now, to give some explanation about the situation, my mom and her husband got married 3 years ago. They moved in together 2 months before, and before moving in, they sat me down and asked me if I was okay with us moving in together and making a family of 3 again. My mom brought up how we would have a man around the house again, since we didn't have one because my dad passed away, and how good it would be for her to have a husband and for me to have a dad. And he said he couldn't wait to be my dad, and he always wanted to be a father. In fact, he said he already had plans for us on Father's Day. Now, this was February of 3 years ago, and I told him I wasn't okay with that stuff. I said that I didn't want another dad, and I wouldn't let him be my dad. And on top of that, I was not about to spend Father's Day celebrating someone who is not my dad. Well, they started laughing and proceeded as normal, but Father's Day became a struggle because I have not spent the day with him the last 3 years. And trust me, he has tried, and so has my mom. But I meant what I said. I never called him dad or let him fill the role in my life. Well, this year he snapped, and he had a temper tantrum and said I was supposed to be with him on Father's Day and not spending the day alone, and that he did not sign up to be nothing to me. My mom then called me a liar because she said I promised to develop a close relationship with her husband and that I said yes to wanting what they asked. She said that I had said that I would give him Father's Day and that I lied and I've not followed through on any of it. She said that I made him think I would be a willing participant and that I wanted us to be a family, but it pisses me off because I never said what she claims, and I even repeated what I had said back to them. The therapist couldn't get my mom to apologize, and she has no control over the sessions where my mom and her husband dominate it. So I'm just totally silent and I zone out. And this is something that they only realized 2 weeks ago. Eventually, they called me on it and I spoke up again after more than a month of not talking in therapy, just to confirm that I was not listening. It then came up last week and I said I was done engaging because I was owed an apology for being called a liar. My mom and her husband are now pissed off that I'm wasting everybody's time letting therapy happen. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk. Your mom and her husband absolutely went about this the wrong way. Instead of going to therapy for legitimate reasons, they went to therapy in some kind of like desperate attempt to convince you, if not make you, call this guy your dad and spend Father's Day with him in some kind of way. And that is honestly so toxic and so weird. Like your mom is straight up lying about you and trying to be like, oh yeah, you're actually the problem here. You said you would give him this day and you would develop a close relationship. But it's like, what are you talking about? None of that happened. You laid it out very clearly and these people just laughed you off. And that, in my opinion, shows everything that you need to know. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would be spacing out during these therapy sessions too. Because if this therapist is gonna let these people call you a liar and then not even be allowed to like share your point of view, then honestly, this is all just a complete waste of time. An entitled old jerk loses his mind when he sees me walking through a shorter line to get through customs at an airport. And despite the fact that I needed the extra assistance after having surgery on both of my knees, this guy refused to leave me alone, resulting in him getting pulled aside by an officer. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened last week. I had double knee surgery like the title says, but I needed to fly the day afterwards. So I call the airline and the airport. I explain my situation and I arrange for extra assistance. As I'm hobbling with my canes towards the short line at passport control, as there was supposed to be a wheelchair for me there, but it didn't show up, this entitled old jerk standing in the regular passport line starts yelling at me. He starts screaming at me about why I get to go through the short line when, according to him, half of his body is destroyed. Mind you, the guy who's standing is looking pretty fit, except for his gut, and he's wearing a large backpack on the destroyed side of his body. Now, I try to be nice and tell him to ask the security personnel nicely, and maybe they'll let him use the short line, but this apparently just pissed him off more, because he then flips me the bird, along with saying, "Screw you, jerk." So I just say, "Okay, buddy," and I keep hobbling down the short line. I then look back and I see the guy having an animated conversation with security, and they eventually let him into the short line. So I guess he took advantage of my advice and got what he wanted. But this apparently isn't good enough for this dude, because he's standing behind me huffing and puffing and just breathing down my neck. The next thing I know, he pushes past me because I choose to protect my knees instead of blocking him. He then pushes past two old ladies in wheelchairs and goes to the front of the line. The custom agent sees what happens, and bless her heart, she tells him to go aside for further screening. He is still standing there opening his bag for customs and arguing with a giant customs officer when I get to the passport desk. The nice customs officer clears me in 2 seconds and then apologizes for making me wait. And the last I saw of this jerk, he was still yelling at the customs officer while they toss his bag to the side. Now, I really hope he pushed it and ended up in a small room answering questions to a custom officer, all for at least a few hours just to make sure he misses his flight, because this guy truly was a massive jerk. Yeah, I will never understand why people act this way, because seriously, does he not see people around him watching his weird antics? Is it seriously that hard to just mind your own business and not attack other people because of perceived differences? Like, I don't know about you, but I like to mind my own business and just stay in my lane when it comes to other people. And just because someone's going through a shorter line doesn't mean I'm gonna chime in and be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you're getting this short line. I deserve it more than you do." So yeah, that guy's a piece of garbage, and honestly, I think he's getting karma in the best way possible. Because while it's one thing to yell at a passenger, it is an entirely different situation when you start yelling at a customs officer, because that could land you in quite a bit of hot water. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend ruined my trip to Italy, as he literally started problems with me the second I landed overseas, claiming that I didn't care about him enough and that I was focusing on my friends more than I was focusing on him. And despite the fact that I was apologizing for somehow offending him, he demanded that I apologize from the heart, because according to him, I didn't mean it the first time that I said it. And at this point, I'm so frustrated that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female, and I've been dating my 25-year-old boyfriend for about a year. I went to Italy for 4 days with my father, and I was looking forward for these vacations because I was working part-time and writing my thesis at the same time. And for reference, I work with telemarketing, and it is very stressful. Now, it's important to know that my boyfriend always had the tendency to make problems over nothing. He says I hurt him and makes me feel guilty because of very small things. He stresses me almost every week. Sometimes I think the reasons he gets upset are ridiculous, but sometimes I wonder if I'm being too insensitive. However, because of this, I'm starting to stop enjoying his company because it feels like a headache. When I was flying to Italy, he wished me a good trip, which I replied to him by saying thank you and I'll see you there, and I left a kiss emoji at the end. Then he answers by saying enjoy a lot and sends me a screenshot that he used the money of my meal card to pay something, and he sent me back the money. When the plane landed, I saw the messages and I replied by saying okay, and he reacts only with one emoji to my message without even replying. I was busy looking for my luggage and finding the bus I have to catch to go to the hotel with my dad, and he didn't reply to the message the entire day. I thought that maybe he was waiting until nighttime to text me back since I was traveling, and it's hard to text while you're traveling. Then my friends also wish me a good trip and give me suggestions of what to visit in the city, which I did reply, but honestly, I barely talked to anyone because I was so busy catching public transportation. I was also walking around and I was trying to find the hotel, and it was like this the entire trip. I was always visiting monuments and always walking. At nighttime, he messages and tells me how angry he is with me, all because I never replied to him, and he saw me online the entire day, asking me who I was talking to in the first place. But I told him he was the one who didn't reply, and I was talking with my mom and my friends because they wished me a good trip. He says I should have replied to his message that says enjoy a lot, but but I only replied with okay to a screenshot. So I apologized and said I was a bit busy, but I was also expecting a message back from him. And honestly, I was just surprised he didn't ask me how my flight was. He then proceeded to annoy me for the entire trip, saying that he's not my priority and that I don't give him enough importance and that I value my friends more than him. I tried explaining that I was just busy and I barely talked to anyone. I just replied to their messages and I don't see anything wrong with that. He then didn't text me back because he just didn't want to. I mean, I barely have any friends to begin with, only like 2 of them. We barely hang out because we have busy lives and we only talk by message anyways. How is that giving more importance than my boyfriend? He also started asking me for screenshots of my conversations, which I just completely refused. He then gets mad at me saying that I don't want to share anything and says that partners are supposed to share everything. There's no privacy between them. But I don't think he should demand of me screenshots of my WhatsApp messages. And then he started demanding me for more apologies, saying that I didn't say sorry from the heart. I didn't reply to his messages for a few hours because I was busy visiting the city. He then posted statuses with revengeful quotes, basically saying that karma will get me and he will watch me screwing up my life, all because of what I did to him. And I thought this attitude was so disgusting. He's wishing me bad because of a very small thing. He knew I was looking forward to these vacations and still makes my life a living nightmare and just ruining my trip because honestly, I just wanted 4 days of peace and enjoyment. Yeah, your boyfriend is an immature piece of garbage. Like, what is his problem? First of all, he's trying to be like, oh, you didn't apologize from the heart. You need to say it again. Like, that is a massive red flag. That is so unacceptable. You don't talk to your girlfriend like that. Like, seriously, what's wrong with him? And since we're talking about it, you did not need to apologize for anything in that scenario. You literally did nothing wrong. How can this moron not understand that yes, you're busy on a trip overseas? You're literally trying to navigate all these things and this guy's like, wow, you don't care about me. Okay, have fun screwing up your life. I'm just gonna watch it happen. It's like now, right now, you're choosing to act this way? This is so crazy, it's not even funny. So yeah, I'm just gonna say it. I think your boyfriend's a piece of garbage, and the fact that he would choose right now to cause problems in your life, in my opinion, is a massive red flag, and that is not something that you should ever ignore. Am I the jerk for pointing out that my parents never moved out on their own after they approached me in public after not contacting them for nearly 18 years? Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been no contact with my parents for nearly 18 years. They were awful towards me. My father was arrested and convicted on multiple felonies, and they withheld medical care for the last 2 years I was with them. And this year, my son wound up in a day school in the same town that I grew up in. Now, I needed to pick up some supplies for work and figured that I could stop in town before going into the city. Unfortunately, my parents and my brother were there and they saw me, and there were a few other people with them from their church doing some shopping for a food drive. My mother then wailed out loud. She ran up to hug me, but I put my arm out, and when I did that, she cried even more. She said to me, "Oh please, I'm your mom. I brought you into this world." But I told her I wasn't doing this today. And then her church friend started pleading with me, spouting scripture and trying to guilt trip me. Well, my father then glared at me and put his arm around my mother. He said that I'd always been a waste of their energy. For reference, I was unplanned, and they reminded me every chance they could get. In fact, my nickname growing up was Missy, which is basically short for the word mistake. He then followed up with saying that I was a failure in school and there was no way I'd make anything of myself. But I replied by saying that it's funny how once I got the proper medical care, I didn't have the issues with school that I used to have. Before I turned around, I smiled and I said to them, "Oh, and it's rich that you say that when I'm the only person in our family that managed to move out on my own." For reference, my mother never moved out and my father moved into my grandparents' house. They never left, and my elderly grandmother still pays for all their food and utilities. I've had a few cousins tell me that their friends have started to distance themselves because they were told my parents were taking care of my grandmother in their home. And while I don't think I've done anything wrong, my grandmother called me up and basically was super upset that I outed them. She said I should have just walked away and not gone out of my way to embarrass them. So it honestly leaves me wondering if I'm the jerk in this situation, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you fought fire with fire, especially after your dad basically said, "Oh, you're a mistake. You've always been a waste of our energy." Like, with that kind of attitude, I can completely understand why you moved away and why you went no contact for nearly 18 years. This is so toxic, it's not even funny. Also, the fact that their church friends were like, "Oh no, but you have to, she's your mother," and then they start spouting off scripture as if that's supposed to like do anything for you. Like, they clearly don't know what you went through as a kid, and the fact that they would blindly follow your parents in this is so annoying. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, even if your grandmother is upset, because the way your parents acted in this scenario, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable. My entitled uncle is practically wishing that my grandma would pass away just so he can kick my adoptive uncle out of my grandma's house. And despite the fact that he has sold off so much property that my grandfather and grandma have owned, this guy is on a power trip. And at this point, I seriously do not know what to do. Here's what happened. So my mom has a younger brother that we will be referring to as the entitled uncle. So as a background note, my entitled uncle is the only biological son in my mom's family. And as per our inheritance law, he will earn twice as much as his sisters, with my adoptive uncle not getting the inheritance. Being that my late grandpa was rich, he already felt like since he is the only son of the family, naturally he will earn most of the fortune. So he slacked off for most of the time, and ultimately he became jobless. So for years, he has been selling my late grandfather's lands to fit his glamour lifestyle, and he did this all without consulting the family, including my grandmother. My grandma still gives him allowance for his daily life and his medicines. He is married with 2 kids, and all of his kids' education, tuitions, and needs are all paid for by my grandmother. Until now, him and his family periodically come to our house to ask for money from my grandma, and my grandma, being a mom, and gladly gives him about 1 to 3 million of my country's currency per month. Now, my grandma retired from the police department medical unit and still got paid monthly from our government as a civil servant retiree with benefits, and she also rents out a lot for a furniture factory as well as a furniture store, which gives her more income. Now, this land that she owns was mostly managed by my mom and my adoptive uncle. So basically, since my mom lives with my grandma, my adoptive uncle's job is to monitor the lot and report to my mom if there's any incident or stuff that needs to be fixed. Also, this lot is my grandma's main source of income. Anyways, a couple days ago, I accidentally overheard my mom half yelling at my grandma because my grandma asked for more money. At first, my mom asked if the money she gave yesterday is not enough, to which my grandma said that she gave all the money to my entitled uncle for his medicines. Now, my mom was pretty shocked because the amount of money she gave my grandma is not little. And this is where I heard my mom say the following. She said to her, "Mom, I'm telling you right now, I'm not willing to give money to someone who is praying for your passing. He is your son, and yet he wished that you would pass away soon." So after the incident, I asked my mom what happened because my mom was hyperventilating because of the confrontation. My mom told me that a couple days ago, my entitled uncle comes to the lot and interrogates my adoptive uncle about some renovations. And for reference, my parents decided to renovate the main house on the lot because it is run down. Basically, my entitled uncle wants to let his guests sleep in the main house, but my adoptive uncle told him no because the main house is basically my mom's territory. So, being the typical entitled jerk that he is, my uncle then said, "You'll see later when mom passes away. Soon I'll be kicking you out because guess what? I'm the owner of this property after mom dies." He then went to see my grandma and said the same thing but reworded it. My grandma then told my mom about it, and she was heartbroken because she can't believe that her son, whom she doted by providing all of his needs, was able to say something like that. But anyways, I heard all of it, and while my entitled uncle's intention was to scare my adoptive uncle away, him saying that soon he'll be kicking out my adoptive uncle after my grandma passes away is like him hoping for my grandma's demise so that he can rule the lot. Even if grandma passed away, the property is not entirely his. It will be owned by the family and ultimately be sold off, and the earnings will be split. I told my mom, with the amount of property he has sold for his own gain and not for grandma's, he should earn less if the property got sold. I tried my best to stay neutral and civil with my uncle, but my whole family knows that I have no respect to him, and I wish that he got his karma. But even with failing internal organs, he still does this thing, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, this is really awful because your uncle sounds like a piece of garbage. This guy clearly is blinded by money, and he only cares about getting that sweet inheritance no matter what he says or what he does. And that is so disturbing, like that really is just the sign of an awful person. So hopefully your grandmother sees the light of day and understands your uncle's intentions, as well as the fact that he's using her for money. Because if she's smart, she'll cut him loose and not give him a single thing anymore. Because the way he's acting, in my opinion, is so disgusting. Am I the jerk for not defending my stepmother when my dad's family insulted her after she crossed a serious line? Because right now I'm getting scolded for not saying anything, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my grandparents hosted a family dinner on Sunday, and for a while my dad left because something came up at work for him. My sister and I, both of us being 16 and 17 respectively, were sitting with our cousins when our stepmother corrected us when we said that we had big plans for Halloween and Christmas this year because we were going to be with our maternal side of the family. She told us that those plans still need to be approved by her because dad said said yes without running it by her. Well, this is when my dad's family stepped in and told her that she doesn't have the right to stop us from spending time with our maternal family. My stepmother said that as our mom, she does. And since our maternal family never speaks to her or even tries to befriend her, she has the right to say that they're not good for us. Then our grandparents told her she's not our mom, and the more she pretends to be, the less respect she has from anyone. Then it became a situation where our grandparents and our aunts and our uncles piled onto her and reminded her that she didn't give birth to us. We didn't call her mom, and they accused her of preying on a grieving man who was 11 months out from losing his wife when she swooped in and claimed us as hers. And they rub it in her face that neither my sister or I actually value her or love her or even want her in our lives. It became this huge fight because them and my stepmom stormed out. She tried to make my sister and me leave with her, but we refused to go with her, and we said we were staying with our family. Well, my dad was pissed off when he came to pick us up, and he asked me if I stepped in to defend my stepmother, who is a woman in our family, and I just said no. He asked me why on earth did I not do that, but I told him that I didn't want to defend her, and I didn't disagree with everything being said. My stepmother asked why I hadn't spoken up for her, and I told her because everything they said is true, and I would never defend her for anything. Dad then said he's not going to give us extra time with mom's family at Christmas, but my sister kind of talked him around on that because she cried to him, which made him give in. But I got lectured 2 days this week already about 10 years of being a stepmother deserving more respect and value, and being worth defending in the family. My dad told me I'm a few months away from being a man, and I need to act more like one. And that means defending the women in our lives, but especially the ones that we love. I told him that I always defend the people I love when I need to, and this made my stepmother cry. It made my dad walk out of the room to calm down because his wife was crying. Dad told me I'm a bad example to my sister, and the only reason she doesn't adore our stepmother is because she has followed my lead, and I should think about my influence and the fact that I'm risking a relationship with my stepmother in the future. Now, I should add that I've said similar things to her before, and to my dad as well, but they've never truly listened to me. So am I the jerk for the way I handled this situation? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your stepmom really crossed the line here in my opinion, and that is completely inappropriate. Like, that really is not okay. She can't sit there and pretend to be your mom and then try to be like, I deserve all the respect in the world. And it's like, dude, like, are you serious right now? This really is obnoxious, and there really is no reason to act like this. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, because your stepmom, in my opinion, was being incredibly rude. Am I the jerk for asking my employee to show up at their scheduled time after they blew me off literally 10 minutes before their shift? Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old female, and I own a bakery business. My fiance's mother, who's 65 years old, works for me as the primary baker. I offer a flexible schedule, and I told her she could pick the hours that she would like to work. Prep takes place in a kitchen setup within my home, and every week she tells me what day and time she would like to come and do her baking prep work. But every week she had been late, and I have never complained to her about it or made any comments. A few days ago, she told me that she would come bake at 4:30 p.m. start, and that's honestly not a problem. I got off work at around 3:30 and began prepping dough for her to bake on her arrival. I turned my oven on around 4 o'clock p.m. because it does take a while to heat up, but by 4:20, she texted me that she was going to dinner and would be coming by afterwards. But she didn't give me a time for arrival, but I didn't say anything to her about it or even complain about it. I had the oven on and time to kill, so I just started doing some prep to get ahead of the game. I figured that since she was going to be late, I might as well utilize the time that I had. Well, my fiance's mom showed up at 5:58. When she got there, she asked why I was baking, and I said I figured I could just get ahead of the game rather than let the dough sit around. She then asked me if I had a problem with her being late, and I said I have no issues. I would just appreciate it if next time she could give me 24-hour notice of when she plans to come to work so I can plan accordingly. Well, she then said that she had an issue with it. I asked her what she meant, and she told me it was insulting that I began her job. I told her I didn't mean any ill will by it. I was just trying to use the time that I had, but she told me that she just wanted to get the work done and that we would talk about it later. I gave it a couple of hours and went back into the kitchen to ask if she could take a quick break and we could discuss the issue, because I would really like to find a resolution if possible. I asked her how she was feeling, and she told me, well, if I think there's an issue, then I should speak first. I said to her, well, I said I had no issues, and you were the one who said you had a problem, so I'm just trying to understand what's going on. But she then told me again that it was insulting that I started her job. She said that I told her she could pick her own hours, and if I have different expectations, to please communicate them. I said to her, I don't have a problem with you picking your own hours. I'm just asking that you let me know when you plan to come and arrive at that time so I can plan accordingly. To this, she said to me, well, this is how I feel. I'm not the only one for this job. You are the way you are, and you can find someone else. Now, my my fiance was in the other room listening and was just as confused as I was. I then went upstairs and I cried. I have been close with my fiance's mom for years and have never had any sort of argument or disagreement. We have only ever had a very positive relationship. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk, and honestly, I would even be questioning if she should be working for you in the first place. If this really is your business, and she says she's gonna be here at 4:20 and then arrives over an hour and a half late, like in my opinion, that's a big sign that yes, she has gotta go. Because what she's doing is completely unacceptable. Like, this is absolutely disgusting behavior because she is taking advantage of you and basically saying, oh, but this is what we agreed to. You said I could set my own hours. But it's like, yeah, you can set your own hours, but you have to fulfill that agreement when you do pick your hours, stupid. You can't just blow me off suddenly right before your shift and be like, oh, I'm going to dinner instead. I'll be there when I feel like it. Like, at that point, you might as well start doing her job and probably looking for a new baker. Like, no one who actually respects their boss would be like, oh, I'll just show up when I want to. Like, no, you're gonna show up when you said you're gonna show up, and not whenever you feel like it. Now, also to the original poster, I think you need to realize that this is your business, and if she's not taking it seriously and is affecting your bottom line, then you're the one that's gonna be punished for it and not her. So truly, you should not be getting upset about this. Instead, you really should be like putting your foot down and saying, no, you have to come to work or I'm gonna replace you. And sure, you've always had a good relationship with your fiance's mother, but clearly she's not a good worker, and that, in my opinion, is not your fault. So no, you're not the jerk for the way you reacted, but I think you would be a fool for not putting your foot down and standing more firm. Because from the sounds of it, your fiance's mother is only going to take advantage of you until you finally stand up for yourself and act like an owner. An entitled toxic family rents out my lakefront property for a vacation and absolutely destroys it, lighting furniture on fire as well as destroying my ATV and most of my house. And when I confronted them about the damages, they then decided that they were going to ruin my life by defaming my name to millions of people online. But what they didn't know is that I have cameras, proving once and for all that yes, they did do exactly what they did. And now they're desperately pleading that I settle out of court simply because they didn't know that they were on camera. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been very fortunate in my life. I recognize this and I understand my privilege. Everything I have was worked for on my own, starting all from nothing, and I am very grateful every single day. Now, I have a lakefront property in a vacation destination in the United States, and I rent it out year-round when I'm not there myself. Available on the property is wave runners, inflatables, etc. And during the winter months, these items are blocked away in a shed, and the price of the rent decreases to reflect that, since summer rentals are more to cover the insurance needed to operate them. I am below surrounding property prices because everyone deserves to vacation, not just the wealthy. A family rented out my property for 2 weeks in the winter. They said it was for a family reunion and it would be quite the affair. Well, during their stay, several family members broke into the shed and dragged out the trailer the wave runners were on, damaging the trailer and puncturing the tires, as well as somehow bending the frame. They tied the wave runners to the truck, dragging them to the lake and damaging them, one to the point of a total loss. They took out the ATV that I have in the back that I used to survey the property and make runs to the veg stand down the way. In fact, one of the kids went out of control, driving it up onto the sprinklers and landscaping, smashing through a porch railing, damaging the ATV as well. The child broke their leg and required some surgery. They also ransacked the property, burning furniture in the fire pit and putting large holes in walls, as well as breaking countertops in both the kitchen and the bathrooms. Well, the parents came after me for the cost, stating it was my fault, it was negligence, and it was an attractive nuisance. They were vicious, having their friends and family leave negative reviews for both my property and my local business. What they didn't know was that I had cameras that captured it all. My lawyer was a shark and went after them for everything, including damages for defamation. Well, the family is now so sorry. They didn't know I had cameras and want to settle out of court for 1/5 of what they would owe me otherwise. Now, I honestly would have considered it if they said sorry and meant it, but they still haven't taken down the videos on social media that paint me as a monster landlord, some of them getting over 1 million views. So I have mostly decided to not take their offer, and from what my lawyer says, this really could bankrupt the family, or so they say. Now, for the record, the property contract clearly and plainly states that all common areas have cameras, and they initialed it stating that they had read through this. And it says very plainly, common areas meaning the outside, the porches, the fire pit, the lakefront, the sheds, the barns, and the mailbox. I was also under the impression that common areas did not include inside the actual house. If I'm honest, aside from the lying, the burning of the furniture upset me the most. One was a writing desk from the late 1800s, a wicker chair set, 2 picture frames, 2 mature fig trees, a small bookshelf, all of the wooden cooking utensils, the books from the second bedroom, and a rocking chair. So you know what? I was rather attached to all of that. So am I the jerk if I don't take the settlement? Because right now I'm kind of feeling guilty. Okay, in my opinion, and this is just what I would do in this situation, I would not back down for a second. These people have not only tried to say that this is your fault, but also tried to be like, oh yeah, you're an awful landlord, you're a terrible person, and we're gonna ruin your business. And that part alone is what makes me the most angry. Like, if someone destroyed my property, sure, we can settle it there. But the fact that they want to try and ruin my reputation over stuff that they did, like, that is crazy to me. And seriously, thank God you had cameras, because these people are absolute scumbags. And if you didn't have recorded proof that yes, this definitely happened, then I'm positive that this could have gone very poorly.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for resenting my cousin while he's going through a crisis after he abandoned me when I was going through mine? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm 19 years old and my cousin is 24. Over the last year, my mental health has legitimately been taking hit after hit, basically more than ever before in my life. I'm isolating myself, I'm starting fights with everybody, I'm not getting out of bed for the majority of most days, and burning around 3 different friendship bridges is just the stuff that I can bring up on this side of the internet without fearing that I might be banned. But needless to say, it was really, really bad. Then a couple months into it, I started calling him asking for help, and he was going along with it, saying to me, yeah, you can rely on me at all times, I can handle it. And so this was the system for a while. I called him every time I needed to talk to someone, and he would help me out. And he was genuinely amazing at that. He had some of the best advice I've ever heard, and he kept me up for several more months. And by then, I have grown used to relying on him. In fact, I even started going to therapy because of him, and things actually started to get better. Then at some point, he finally snapped. I'm pretty sure I can remember in which day this happened. He was driving me back home, and he started ranting with anger about how this was ruining him, how exhausting it was to have a conversation with me, and minutes later gets calls from 3 different family members asking what I said, and how he doesn't want his ability to talk to me to be dictated by that. I tried to go, yeah, that must really suck, but I didn't really consider the implications. He then said that he cared about me, and I said I could never thank him enough. But after that, he turned cold. I would tell him I had a horrible day, and he would just say to me, yeah, and I would call him in the middle of an anxiety attack, and he would hear what it was all about, and then he would say, okay, I can't talk right now, and then he would hang up on me. He dropped everything else in his life too. Everyone else in the family basically agrees that the pressure of helping me, along with a bunch of other things that happened in his life at the time, was just draining him out, and he wasn't in a state to keep being helpful, let alone to someone who's dealing with stuff. But I just saw this as the ultimate betrayal. You used to be here for me, and now you're not. I got scared of looking him in the eyes, or even talking to him during family meetings, or just eating around him. It really, really hurt. And now he's kind of better, as he's got on antidepressants, but he's not really the way he used to be. He's into having a conversation, but he reacts pretty blank whenever I try to come with something heavy. And the thing is, now that he wants to do things that are good for him, he loves visiting us multiple times a week, and he comes to our house to play board games with my little brother. And almost everyone but me really love it. They love his company, they love talking and playing with him, but I keep feeling like the household is paralyzed. If I'm in the same room as him, I feel like I can't make a noise. I feel like I have to present as hyper respectful for him because a part of my brain is genuinely sure that he's gonna judge me if I step out of line, no matter how irrational and reductive I know it is. And also the living room, which is the only room in the house big enough to contain the games they like to play in their full form. He has a direct view to the kitchen, which means whenever he's around, I become visibly anxious whenever I try to eat. It's not fair for him, and I know it isn't, but I don't know how to stop. Yesterday, I woke up during the afternoon, and he was in the living room from the moment I woke up, and I just felt numb. I was on my phone in my bed for most of the day, and whenever I went to the living room or the kitchen, I kept feeling like, oh my god, he's paralyzing the house. God, when is he going away? He was playing games with my mom and my brother, and each of them took multiple hours, and they all seemed to be having a great time, but I was just waiting for it all to be over. At one point, we were having dinner, and I just blurted out by saying, I had a dream where I told you I relapsed, and you just did not get what I wanted from you. And I said this in front of my parents and brother. His response was just to say, okay, and we haven't even brought it up ever since. After it went dark outside, he said he was going to leave after the end of this one game, and I said nothing, but in my heart, I was saying yes. But then he got a phone call, and then he came back and told everyone something I couldn't really sort out, mostly because I was was not really in my body at the moment. After the game was over and he was very passionately talking about it with my brother, I asked my mom, wasn't he supposed to leave? And she said to me, no, there was a change in plans. He'll stay here for about 2 more hours. And it was basically as bad as the news could be. So I didn't really think before I went, he's gonna stay for 2 more hours? And he was literally a few meters away. Nobody said anything, and he did indeed leave a couple of hours later. I then went to my room and I waited for all of it to be over. Later that night, my mom went into my room to tell me this was inappropriate. He was dealing with a lot too, and it's not his fault. He was trying to help and it got too much because it's even too much for her. She also said that if someone helps you get your life back on track when you're in a state like that, that's it. You owe them for the rest of your life. I know it's messed up, but honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, you're not gonna like what I'm gonna say, but yes, absolutely you're the jerk. I can understand having someone to look to when you're having an anxiety attack or some kind of like depressive episode, or your mental health is out of whack and you've got to reach out to them. Like that really is a good safety net, and it's important for you to have that kind of thing ready if you really do need it. But for you to seriously hold some kind of resentment towards him after he's like, look, I can't take this anymore. This is too much for me and I can't do it. Like instead of going to someone else and being like, hey, I need a new safety net, you decide to be like, wow, he's the enemy. I will never forgive you for this betrayal. And it's like, what in the world are you talking about? There's no betrayal happening here. He's saying that he loves you and that he cares about you, but he cannot emotionally take this. And I'm sure in the beginning he was optimistic. He probably thought to himself, yeah, I can handle this. This is fine. But then when it gets down to the dark and dirty stuff, that's when he's like, oh my God, I can't handle this. Sure, he has sympathy for your situation, but after a while, I can completely understand where he's coming from, because then it's just become too much. Every single day you're having an issue and it's like, oh my God, I'm the only one bearing this burden. This is awful. Like this is why therapy is so important in my opinion, because it not only teaches you how to handle these situations, but you work with someone who's a professional who can point you in this direction. And your cousin, by the way, is not the professional that can help you in these moments. So in my opinion, I think you absolutely are the jerk for holding this resentment towards your cousin, because trust me, based on what I've heard, this is absolutely a one-sided resentment. You're literally staying mad and angry at him, all because he can't listen to all of your stuff every single day. Like, I'm sorry you're having anxiety attacks and you're going through these hard moments, but he is not responsible for your triggers or your mental health. That falls squarely on your shoulders, and in my opinion, he has made his boundaries pretty clear. He can't do this anymore, but he still wants to be in the family. So for you to still be dragging him around and being like, oh, I had a dream about you, as well as you avoiding him in your own home, like all of that is so rude and so toxic. Because if anything, it just proves that yes, you definitely need to keep talking to your therapist, because this behavior is not normal. If he was mad at you, I'm pretty sure there would be like evidence of him being mad at you. But right now, it just seems like he's indifferent and he's just trying to move forward with his life and you're just not letting him. So yes, I have sympathy for your situation. I just think that you're taking this out on the wrong person, because this guy literally did nothing wrong. And I think you need to realize that sooner than later. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law to stop playing poor around my kids because this is having a negative effect on their lives? Here's what happened. My sister-in-law, who we will call Lily, has been close to my family ever since her recent divorce. She's had a bit of a rough time financially since then, so she's really embraced the simple life. She often talks about how she doesn't need much, how money is a distraction, and how having less is really freeing. My kids are 11 and 12 years old, and Lily has started babysitting them sometimes, but I've noticed that after hanging out with her, they make little comments such as, why do we need a big house? Why buy new clothes if we don't really need them? Now, to be clear, I'm all for teaching gratitude, but I also feel it's important for my kids to see that success and comfort don't have to be negative things. I didn't grow up with much, and my husband and I worked hard to build our life so that our kids could have opportunities that we didn't have. I didn't want them feeling guilty for what we have, but Lily's influence seems to be making them second guess our lifestyle. When I asked her as gently as I could to stop making these comments around my kids, Lily was hurt and said I was trying to erase her reality and accused me of being materialistic. She said it's her duty to show them the world isn't all about money and things, which I totally get, but I think there's a line between that and making them uncomfortable with our lifestyle. Well, the conversation got heated after Lily called me materialistic, and I snapped at her and I told her to just stop playing poor. Well, now my husband's family thinks I'm overreacting and says that Lily is just sharing her values. My mom then said that I'm being snobby or trying to shelter my kids from other viewpoints. So am I the jerk for telling her to keep her simple living talk away from my kids? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk entirely, because I do kind of understand where you're coming from, and I think the core idea here is that you don't want someone else telling your kids what they should and shouldn't do. And to that end, I completely agree with you. While the subject matter, in my opinion, is not that big of a deal, I do think it's important to set boundaries boundaries and be like, hey, this is what you can and can't do with my kids. And any kind of like self-calling in life is completely inappropriate and you just need to stop. So no, in my opinion, I do not think that you're the jerk. My boyfriend cheated on me years ago, and now I'm trying to see if I can make things work. But despite our best efforts, my boyfriend is now saying that he wants to go back on a break. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so maybe I just need to vent, or maybe I need someone to slap me in the face. So internet, please give me the harsh truth. We were close friends in college for 3 years and started dating 5 years ago. After we graduated in 2019, we worked together for a year and have been doing a long-distance relationship since then because of work. For reference, we're both engineers in different sites, and we meet during our off time every 2 months. We navigated early adulthood together, from 2 broke fresh graduates until him now a vice manager and me building my own consultant. I've always thought of our camaraderie and support for each other's goals as one of the reasons why I want to be with him permanently. For the past 2 years, we've been talking about getting married. He often talks about what kind of family and house he would want to build for me, and I never not believed his intentions to stay with me. That is until earlier this year. Now, let me preface this by saying that I'm pretty conservative with my boundaries. I made this clear since the beginning when we started our long-distance relationship, so that if he didn't share the same views, we could just end things right there. So by all means, make friends with whoever, but don't do things you wouldn't do in front of me. And in the beginning, I enforced this pretty hard, basically being very clingy and very needy. At the end of 2021, the first year of the long-distance relationship was pretty rough. My low self-esteem and insecurity heavily affected our relationship, and it did create a rift. Plus, we had limited time to communicate with each other. It's around this time that he claimed he started to get attracted and became comfortable with this girl who we will call Lisa. And as a result, he slept with her and stayed in a relationship with her for years. That is, until I found out earlier this year. Now, Lisa was the one who spilled the beans. She confronted me nicely after, according to her, my boyfriend had been distant and avoiding her for the past year. He claimed they only slept together once, but he realized his mistake and tried to avoid her without confronting her. And he did move shortly after they slept together. He said it was a one-time mistake, and because Lisa was in HR, he felt he was in too deep to rectify their relationship, and he was afraid of some kind of fallback. After a year of that, he moved to my company so we could meet more often, leaving Lisa but not saying explicitly that he's ending their relationship. Now, against my own principles, I decided to forgive him. I was banking on the fact that he ghosted Lisa just to stay with me. I see him as genuinely owning up and trying to mend things, going with my flow throughout my healing process. He promised to be committed and initiated the final talk between him, me, and Lisa. But still, forgiving an actual affair is hard, and I feel so drained. He said that he regretted that and felt the guilt eating him up from the inside too. The past 10 months have been a roller coaster until finally the pain, anger, and sadness considerably passed, and we can talk and laugh again most of the time. Recently, I was ready to move forward again with our initial plan of getting married, and he said he's always happy with me throughout this. He still loves me, and he's sorry for his inability to make me happy and to offer a certainty to our future. But now he feels pressured because of how hard his parents disagree with our relationship, not to mention his parents' health condition, his new work, and how his affair has drained us. He needs time to sort out his thoughts and initiated a break, all while he grieves his mistakes, and so that I can pursue my dreams without being tied to his condition. I did some work on my self-esteem, and I know I'm not going to pass away from breaking up. I have many opportunities lined up, but somehow if it doesn't happen, I kind of feel like I don't want to be okay. If I'm okay with this, it's as if all these years meant nothing. I'm disappointed in him seemingly giving up right now. I still want to wait and see if there's still a future for us, but at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, you wanted some harsh truth, so I'm gonna give it to you. I think you're a fool for trying to go back to this guy. Why do you think he wants to go on a break, by the way? Like, why do you really think he wants to be like, oh, you should pursue your dreams? It's not because he cares about your well-being. In my opinion, it's so he can go hook up with Lisa or some other woman again. I truly believe that this guy is playing you for a fool, and the fact that you went back to him after he openly cheated on you, in my opinion, says all that you need to know, because this guy blatantly and obviously cannot be trusted. He broke your trust the moment he had that affair, and in my opinion, I think this is something that I absolutely could never forgive. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that a Halloween costume wasn't that bad and that she needed to educate herself? Because right now, my mom is being ridiculous with my little brother's costume options, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 24-year-old female, and I just got into a heated argument with my mom over the costume my little brother is wanting to wear for Halloween. Now, my mom is heavily religious. When she's not at work, she is either spending her day doing Bible study in her room, or she is at church. She does not watch any shows or movies, and if she opens opens up YouTube, it's to watch the live stream from a church. And she was not like this when I was growing up, but it all started when I was around 19 years old. All that is to say is that she has been basically turning down all of the ideas my brother has for Halloween. For reference, my brother is 12 years old. For the last few years, he's been an astronaut of his own choice, but this year he wanted to be Jason. My mom said no because his mask is scary, and I was going over other options with him, and he decided on a plague doctor. Well, my mom saw it and said that it was dark and scary. I tried to explain to her that the costume is not bad, and that it's literally just a doctor who dressed like that due to treating patients with the plague. She then argued that she would buy him a costume that she approved of, but I told her straight up that she would be wasting her money because she cannot force him to wear something that he doesn't want to. Also, as a side note, she isn't even the one taking him trick-or-treating. Our dad is coming into town and he will be taking him. I basically told her that it is not my fault that she is choosing to not understand the actual purpose of a plague doctor and choosing to only look at the appearance of the costume. She then told me, "I'm your mother and you can't talk to me like that. You should respect me." Now, I never cussed at her or used any foul language when telling her about the costume, but it was still so frustrating. But I did say, I'm a grown adult and I will talk how I want to, but you obviously are not showing me respect either. I also told her that I've done everything that she wanted up until now and I'm tired and I wanted her to leave me alone. Now, as a side note, unrelated to the costume, but something that does give more background about my mom and brother are living with me and my spouse. She is not paying any rent and my parents separated, so my dad is paying her portion since my brother is here. She also argued with me for the master bedroom and I eventually gave up and let her have it. Now, I do feel a bit guilty since I know she'll be up praying and crying over this. So am I the jerk for getting upset and arguing about this with my mom? Because right now I'm still incredibly annoyed. No, you're not the jerk at all. You didn't even do anything wrong. Your mom, by the way, is being a complete idiot. For starters, Halloween is an innocent thing. It's not that big of a deal. Kids dress up as characters and then they get candy from door to door. Like seriously, there's nothing bad going on and anyone who says otherwise, in my opinion, is just weird and out of touch. And it's so funny that your mom's being picky about your brother's costume when she's not even the one that's going to be taking him out to go trick-or-treating. Like, I'm all for someone trying to be religious and being like, yeah, this is important to me and this is what I believe, or whatever might be going on. Like, more power to you, do whatever you want. But to sit there and be like, oh, it's dark and scary, therefore you can't have it, basically implying that it's demonic if you look a certain way, like that is crazy and it's just so dumb. So no, you're definitely not the jerk for arguing back, because the way your mom is acting, in my opinion, is completely ridiculous. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.